Good evening and welcome. This is the December 13th public hearing of the Land Use Commission. The City Code directs this body to hear applications for map and text amendments, special uses including plan developments, zoning relief, and appeals from decisions of the zoning administrator, as well as to make recommendations regarding the city's long-term planning goals and objectives. Depending on the type of matter, this commission will either make a final determination or send its recommendation to City Council. Ms. Jones, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Here.
Commissioner Halleck?
Here.
Commissioner Hugo? Commissioner Johnson? Commissioner Linwall?
Here.
Commissioner Murinchev? Commissioner Puchtel? Commissioner Westerberg?
Here.
Chair Rogers?
Present. So with 5 members present, we do have a quorum. Also present tonight from city staff are Neighborhood and Land Use Planner Megan Jones, Community Development Director Sarah Flax, and Assistant City Attorney Brian George. This is a formal hearing and there are rules that do govern our proceedings. Most importantly, only one person at a time speak so that all testimony may be accurately recorded. Anyone who wishes to address the commission regarding any matter on tonight's agenda will have the opportunity to do so at the appropriate time. Our procedure is to hear from staff on the documents in file and then receive testimony and other evidence from the applicant or appellant. After that, persons wishing to make a statement regarding the matter will have a chance to do so. Any person with a legal interest in property located within the defined notification requirements of the subject property may present evidence, reasonably question witnesses, or seek a continuance of the hearing. When all supporting and opposing testimony and statements have been heard, the applicant or appellant will be given the opportunity for a rebuttal or a closing statement. Then the commission will close the record and begin deliberations to consider the standards. The commission will make formal findings of fact based on the testimony and evidence presented, guided by the standards, the commissioner's knowledge of our community, and the recommendations of staff. All testimony is taken under oath. Although we do not apply the strict rules of evidence, please limit your testimony to the proposal as it relates to the standards contained in the zoning ordinance and the corresponding staff memo. When testifying, please state your name and address for the record and sign in on the provided public comment sheet. Our meetings are audio and video recorded. Please make sure that you are at a microphone when asking questions or making statements so that you may be properly recorded. All proceedings are subject to broadcast at a later date. Any matter not concluded at tonight's hearing will be continued to our next regularly scheduled meeting. We do have 3 items on the agenda this evening. The first one, though, is just a vote, and I'll get to that in a moment. The new business that we do have are both for 1917 Grant Street, 23 PLND 0060, and ZMJV 23 ZMJV 0046. Is the applicant present? All right, thank you. With that, we will go into our agenda, the first item being the approval of our minutes from November 29th, 2023. Has everyone had a chance to look through those, and are there any edits or changes? If not, is there a motion to approve?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I'll second.
Moved by Westerberg, seconded by Lindwall. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? And Commissioner Halleck was not at that meeting. So with 4 votes in favor, the minutes are approved. Moving on to the first item, which is old business. Whenever we are the determining body in a matter, we must have 5 concurring votes, either for or against a particular project. The issue at 2505 McCormick Boulevard, which is 23 ZMJV 0064, currently has a vote of 4-2. Commissioner Halleck was not at that meeting. So at this point, I'm going to ask Commissioner Halleck, have you had an opportunity to read the draft minutes and or watch the video recordings?
And visit the site.
And visit the site. And are you prepared to cast a vote at this time?
Yes.
And how do you vote?
No.
No. Okay, so with that, the motion or the vote goes to 4-3. We still have 2 other members who have yet to vote on the matter. And so the matter will be carried over until our meeting on January 10th, when hopefully we'll be able to make a resolution of that. The new business items that we do have on the agenda this evening we'll talk about them concurrently, although they will be voted on separately. The first one is a text amendment for Efficiency Homes 23 PLND 0060, and the other is a special use for 1915, 1917 Grant Street, which is 23 ZMJV 0046. Ms. Jones, are you, I'm assuming, lead on that? And would you please read that into the record for us?
Pulling up the agenda. Please give me a moment. Okay. Okay, the first item is a text amendment for Efficiency Homes, item 23 PLND 0060. David Wallach of Blue Paint Development submits for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, Title VI of the City Code, to adjust regulations related to the definition of efficiency homes in Section 618.3 and the construction of efficiency homes within residential districts, Section 6416 and Section 68114. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance. Okay. I will start that over. All right, this is a text amendment for efficiency homes. It is item 23 PLND 0060. David Wallach, Blue Paint Development, submits for a text amendment to the zoning ordinance, Title VI of the City Code, to adjust regulations related to the definition of efficiency homes in Section 618.3 and the construction of efficiency homes within residential districts, Section 6416 and Section 68114. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance with Section 6346 of the Evanston Zoning Code. The second item is a special use at 1915 through 1917 Grant Street. This is item 23 ZMJV 0046. In association with 23 PLND 0060, David Wallach submits for a special use to construct 12 efficiency homes with related zoning relief at 1915 through 1917 Grant Street in the R3 two-family residential district. The request requires the following zoning relief: 12 proposed dwelling units, where a maximum of 6 are permitted on the zoning lot, or 8 when permitted with an IHO bonus, and an open parking setback of 0 feet, where 3 feet is required. The Land Use Commission makes a recommendation to the City Council, the determining body for this case, in accordance with Section 635 of the Evanston Zoning Code.
Thank you. At this point, I'm going to ask anybody who thinks they may be speaking to us on this matter to be sworn. If you would please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth throughout the course of these proceedings? Yes. Thank you. And at this point, Mr. Wallach, if you'd like to come up and state your name and address for the record, and then tell us about your presentation.
Mr. Chair, can I ask a question? We're reviewing these separately, right?
We'll go through them separately, but because there's overlap
Overlap.
on them, we'll have a single presentation
Okay.
of it.
Because our votes may be different.
Our votes may be different, so we will do this like we did with the stadium, where although it's for one property, we'll have 2 different votes, because one is a text amendment for the property, the other is a special use on that property. Thank you. Mr. Wallach, the floor is yours.
Thank you. David Wallach on behalf of Blue Paint Development. My home address is 650 Waukegan Road in Glenview, Illinois. I want to thank the City of Evanston, the aldermen, neighborhood and land use planners for the opportunity and this body. This discussion started several months ago at a meeting with planning and what the needs of Evanston were, and through many meetings with the City of Evanston, we've come up with what we think is through many of those meetings. So tonight's presentation is a culmination of discussions back and forth between the City of Evanston and our company in order to help provide attainable housing consistent with the comprehensive general plan of the City of Evanston. The project itself consists of 12 two-bedroom efficiency homes constructed in what's referred to as a pocket neighborhood located at 1915-17 Grant Street. The lot itself is an unusually large lot, 100 feet wide by about 290 feet deep. The plan, as you can see up on the board here, these units are developed with very high-rated, energy-efficient product on an exterior walls, making the units, the cost burden as to the units extremely low, utilities and so forth, providing two-bedroom, one-bath, single-family residences to the people in the community. A layout of it is on the far right there, which has the units inward-facing on the site, communal space, and 15 parking spaces. Real quickly going through lot coverage calculations that we have, the site itself is 29,714 square feet. The lot coverage that's available pursuant to the code is 13,371. Our proposal is about half of that for the entire lot that would otherwise be allowed on it. We have porch area of 693 square feet. Our impervious surface is allowed to be 17,828. We're proposing 13,741. In essence, the permeable to impermeable space on the entire lot works out to about 50% on this, which is far less than, as you'll see coming forward, just about any of the properties in the neighborhood. We have dumpster in the back. The parking requirement for this site and this type of development would be 0 parking spaces, and we're proposing to put 15 spaces, including 1 handicap, on the property. Statutory considerations that we have for the body. There are 4 considerations to consider as part of the text amendment. The first is whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. The second is whether the proposed amendment is compatible with the overall character of the existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. The third is whether the proposed amendment will have an adverse effect on the value of adjacent properties. And the fourth, of course, is the adequacy of public facilities and services. Evanston itself right now is reconsidering its comprehensive plan. And as part of that, some of the main features of it, as stated in its plan, is to elevate the comprehensive plan as the best possible guide for the future of Evanston. The city is seeking a complete reframing of its long-range planning document, and it's looking for modern, flexible, and implementable parts of the zoning code, inclusive with the process generating equitable outcomes. As part of that, some of the major considerations in its revamping of its comprehensive plan include the following: simplifying regulations and streamlining processes, eliminating exclusionary practices that result in systemic inequities. 3, focus on bulk and placement of structures rather than on density itself. 4, reduce regulations that trigger zoning relief for common sense projects. And the 5th is to replace outdated regulations with best practices. It is with this in mind that we put together our project. The Grant Street proposal is consistent with the goals of the comprehensive general plan. The proposal for 12 efficiency 2-bedroom homes as part of the text amendment satisfies the goals of the city in the following ways. The first, the text amendment streamlines the processes and simplifies the regulations for making this type of needed housing more available. There was a question early on for us as to whether or not we would be doing a text amendment or a PUD. And from a legal standpoint, there was much discussion about what was best. And given the fact that the general comprehensive plan is changing and what it is, we really believe that the plan that we're putting in front of Land Use Commission and further later on is consistent with that, and this would be the right time to have a full debate if one were to be had. The second is systemic inequities has resulted in a lack of affordable housing existing in Evanston and throughout the country, as the case is. And this project seeks to mitigate those inequities. Average housing prices in Evanston, like in most parts of the country, are high. They're borderline outrageous. We're in a housing crisis nationally. We're 6.5 million homes short in this country, and most of that's based on the fact that we keep using the same, trying to come up with the same result for a problem, and the gap grows and continues to grow and will continue to grow, but for having thoughtful rezoning and thoughts like the city of Evanston has, like the state of Oregon has recently, adopting 4 units in an R1 district. Montana and Washington also with similar ordinances. A national trend towards changing ordinance in order to look at these systemic inequities and have housing that is less expensive. You had 6% of your homes in Evanston last year that sold in the $300,000 range. I would probably make the argument that half or more than half of those were tear downs. So if you're going to change it, you got to change it, and you've got to look for ways to do it. And in the cost of housing, the only way to do that is to make homes a little bit smaller. And by doing so, you start getting past the systemic inequities that exist here. The project focuses on bulk placement of structures and not density. The requirement of a text amendment today, as opposed to this being in the future as of right development, is indicative of the exact problem Evanston seeks to resolve. We're not looking at bulk here. We have slides here showing what the neighborhood looks like, and it's not what you want in your city. You want things that fit in better with the neighborhood, that are walkable, that don't take up your entire site in order to get people to live in it and crammed in. The text amendment does seek to reduce regulations that trigger zoning relief from common sense projects like the one proposed, and this project replaces outdated regulations with best practices found in countless revised zoning ordinances throughout the country, some of which I've just mentioned. The amendment is compatible with the character of existing development in the immediate vicinity. The surrounding neighborhood here consists of high-density structures. Even the single-family homes are very high density for the use of the land. And they maximize impervious allowable site usage, which is, of course, contrary to the stated revised goals of the comprehensive plan, which is looking for bulk and placement of structures as opposed to strictly, highly dense other buildings. And the project meets both the comprehensive plan objectives and provides a development that, while having an element of density for certain, is consistent with its neighborhood and actually reduces the footprint which that density exists on as compared to other areas in the neighborhood, other buildings in the neighborhood. So here's an immediate neighborhood just to the east there, and I'll have an aerial here in a second. On the right, a very long building, and then on the left are other townhouses there. But this one is really more illustrative of what's going on here. Just underneath that arrow is that building immediately to the east of ours, which takes up the entire site. If you go immediately to the west of ours, towards Grant Street there, that building encompasses as townhouses just about the entire lot. As you go just to the west of that further, that black roof there goes also all the way down and takes up the entire site. And then around there, all the other homes and other buildings that are there, you'll find very few where we find a lot of green. It's a lot of brown. It's a lot of concrete. It is highly dense. And the definition of density is what one makes it. We talk about people. We talk about structures. And what we're proposing takes that all down a notch and provides attainable housing at the same time. The project will not have an adverse effect on values of adjacent properties. Appraised values of properties are traditionally set by square foot sales. That's how it's traditionally been done. The market price for the homes that we're proposing here will be right around $630 a square foot. about double the value of any neighborhood property. In addition, the quality of construction, I can't stress this more, relating to energy efficiency, structural integrity, sound attenuation, and the finishes will exceed those found in adjacent properties. We're going to build better, and we hope that going forward, after we do this, the city takes notice of that and maybe changes its standards to require higher R values in residential structures and fire-rated assemblies and sound attenuation. And it's something that's a hallmark of our company and how we build. And it's not because it's small and it's less expensive. The company that's marketing this project for us is Jameson Sotheby's, the Sotheby's Jameson Realty, which also works for us when we sell $1.5 million homes. So we're not looking to treat this project any differently than our $1.5 million buyers. It's the same quality, it's the same build, it's the same structure. It's just a little bit smaller. The fourth is that there are adequate public facilities and services for the project. The project's located on a main street to the south and an alley to the north. Sewer and water and electric are readily available. The project's design of reducing the impervious space otherwise permitted will mitigate problems of flooding. There are some flooding problems in the neighborhood, and you can see why. You've got some sewer issues, stormwater sewer issues in the neighborhood, and then you got a lot of big buildings with a lot of roofs, and they're not going anywhere. So we're going to mitigate that by more permeable space, smaller roofs, and much better drainage than you have in the surrounding area. So what are we left with? We're asking for the recommendation of the proposal here. There's obviously two, and I want to touch real quickly on the change on the efficiency. The efficiency homes right now, the square footage that's allotted on there really only allows you to do a one-bedroom unit. We've been working with the inclusionary housing here in Evanston, and there's a need for two-bedroom inclusionary housing. And the math doesn't work. You can't get a two-bedroom at 500 square feet no matter how hard you try. We've got some smart architects. We consult a lot of other smart architects, and it's 500 feet. You can't really get two bedrooms in. We've upped that. These units are 600 square feet. I would make the argument at a further conversation that that's also probably too small for efficiencies. I mean, I think the number should be around 750 square feet. And then also bigger discussions, and this isn't the place for it, but since I have the floor, as a zoning lawyer, some of the way that that's written and allowing 2 stories and still calling it an efficiency to me makes absolutely no sense. If you have 500 square feet on one floor and 500 square feet on another floor, that's a townhouse. And, you got to decide what you're trying to do here. And I think there's a really great opportunity to expand the efficiency housing part of the ordinance here and really make that robust and really take that away from what you could otherwise do in 500 square feet on the first floor and 500 square feet on the second floor. But that's for a completely different day. I apologize for the tangent. But to get 2 bedrooms and to get the inclusionary housing, you need to have that. We are including one of the homes on the property as we like to use the word attainable, but within the definition of the city of Evanston for inclusionary housing. So that's a unit priced at $275,000 for a 2-bedroom unit, and we will be selling one of those. Again, we're not required to, but or partially, depending on how you look at it. But it was a welcome conversation because at the end of the day, it's what we're about anyway. So it was welcomed. So recommendation is warranted, and it is because it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance related to efficiency homes and the like. It is absolutely in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted and comprehensive general plan and the zoning ordinance as amended from time to time. I know that in anything you do, people will oppose projects, and that's all fair. It's a great country. I would make the argument that what we have done in concert with the city of Evanston, this isn't a David Wallach project. I didn't come to the city of Evanston and say, hey, I got a great idea. What do you think about? This conversation was born through an offhanded conversation in planning department about a completely different project. and we started talking about what the city of Evanston would like to do going forward and the wants and needs. And we've crafted this based upon those conversations. So I would say that arguments then against that are, I would look at as against the comprehensive general plan, because if not this one, I think then I don't know what you do on the comprehensive general plan, because this is the type of projects that you need in order to keep people working and living in Evanston and not being forced to buy $750,000, at a base minimum townhouse number, if you can even get one at that. It will not cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is in consideration in conjunction with the cumulative effect of various special uses of all types in the immediate neighborhood and the affected proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. Again, I think going forward, this won't be a special use. I think you're on the right path towards making your efficiency ordinance right, reworking your comprehensive general plan. This should be bread and butter in the future, not somebody standing up and singing for their supper, so to speak. And because it's in the best interest of the community, and that's why it should be done. It does not interfere with or diminish the value of the property in the neighborhood. In actuality, it does the exact opposite. There's nobody there selling for $630 a foot. It can be adequately served by public facilities and services. It does not cause undue traffic congestion. We're not required to have any parking. We're putting in 15 parking spaces, including one handicap. So we're really trying to be good stewards of the neighborhood, and we're also taking 2 curb cuts that exist on the property, off the property, and giving back to the street. It preserves significant historical and architectural resources. It preserves significant natural and environmental features. Again, the permeable space there and the trees and shrubbery and things like that are a direct reflection of that. And it complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances. So with that, we certainly ask for this body to support the plan. We're open to discussions about making it better. We always are. So that's not, we welcome any suggestions as to it, and look forward to building what will be a phenomenal project for the city of Evanston.
I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
I've got lots of questions, actually, but we'll probably banter back and forth. My first one is going back to what you call the tangent that you went on and talked about the square footage. Why, if you think this is small for a 2-bedroom, which I think it is, even at 600,
Yeah.
why wouldn't you go to a 750 square foot and maybe less units on the site?
Because it's going to drive your costs up. In construction right now, you've got land costs that are high. You've got, if we talk about a tangent, we could talk about utilities and site connections and fees and things like that also impact the cost of a project, right? Mm-hmm. Construction costs are outrageous, both material and labor.
But you'd have less units, maybe.
Well, but it doesn't matter unless you're spending more per unit, which means that unit then has to be sold for more money. It's that unit for every square foot that you build. Yep. You're at around $200 if you're doing it really well, a square foot right now.
So if you're trying to keep the cost around 300, that's the drive.
The drive is to provide attainable housing here in Evanston, and for every $50,000 that you add, you're reducing a population that can't afford it. Just last year, in the country, because of the cost of construction, they estimated that 2.4 million renters were just priced out of buying a home just in 2023 because of construction costs. Mm-hmm. So, and that's a Harvard study. That's the 223 Harvard study. So it really is that balance between size, necessity, and price, right, that you're trying to do. The lesser unit part is also, I think, a bit of a red herring as it relates to the site. I mean, we're proving to the site that 50% or more of our site is permeable, right? We're reducing the amount of, than you have in any other place. So you could always do less. You're going to drive the cost up, and then you start getting further away from what you're trying to do in your comprehensive plan to meet a need that I don't think exists, because I don't think 12, I mean, candidly, as it relates to that site, is cramming it in. You could get more units in there. If we wanted to max out the impervious space, we could do more. We're not. And we're not because we just can't. We choose not to. Like, I've had this conversation a few times with, we didn't start at the end and then work backwards. This isn't, ask for the universe, settle for the moon project. It's not. It's well thought out, and it was well thought out with people that work for this community, right? And it was that back and forth. What is the right number? What is the right interplay? What are we trying to do there? We know we've got flooding issues. We know we've got. So I think it is the right number. I think 6 on each side. It's 290 feet long. We're talking about 6 units on each side. I'll get back to that first slide.
Yeah, that's right.
It just isn't really very much. And you're going to then have the same amount of impervious and everything. So
It's interesting that number divided by 6 is about 50 feet. I live in a single-family house, and the width of my lot is 50 feet. So
I mean, I think
I get it now.
I think we got it right. I mean, I really do.
I get it.
Yeah,
but
thanks.
that's an interesting point, though, that it is the width of that the house sits on your house.
The total site of it is on a 50-foot
Around
lot.
50
Correct.
feet,
The site, the unit itself is about 27 by 23, whatever that is. Yeah. Thank you, though. I appreciate that.
What exactly are you planning to sell these for, or just a rough number?
Back and forth between about 359 and 379 is what we.
So 359, 379, and then what would the one affordable unit?
275.
275.
Yeah.
So question for staff, what is 275 considered affordable, or is there another term for that? Is it affordable?
That was the number that was given to us by Ms.
So-
Mary. Yeah. Yeah, go ahead.
The income level for inclusionary for sale houses is at the median, so yes, it would be affordable based on,
Not lower at, say, 260 or so?
pardon?
Not lower at 260? You think the 275 would work?
There's always some play, and this is an estimate based on the income at the time, and it's going to change always by when the actual market units go on the market, because we have to look at all of the actual data of incomes then and recalculate the affordability.
Okay.
Adding to that thought was the point about increasing on the efficiency from 500 to 600, because when we first started the conversation, the number for a one-bedroom unit was less than that 275 number. So in redesigning this and going from 13 to 12 and then doing them all as two-bedroom, we were and 2 legitimate bedrooms. It's not a closet. The minimum bedroom is 10 by 11, right, in these units. So we're not within the inclusionary housing ordinance. They have to be real bedrooms, and they are. And it was told to us that number for that unit, 2 bedrooms for the median income, was 275. So that wasn't a number that we brought in. That was a number that was provided to us and that we're carrying as part of our projection.
Okay. So I have a number of questions about design as well as the plan, but I also have some questions about the amendment in terms of our understanding of efficiency homes. How do you want to have that discussion? Should we deal with one before we go on to the other, or do you want all the questions kind of just out there?
I think questions will kind of flow back and forth a little bit. So if however you want to phrase your questions, I can, you're free to speak on one, then the other.
All right, I'll start, and then if I start going on too long, please interrupt me, Commissioner Lindwall, and I'll yield to you in terms of time. So I want to clarify with staff, the original discussion that I think the Planning Commission had back in 2021 was about efficiency homes that would be used on sort of odd lots, odd sized, odd shaped, and that we wanted to make sure people could somehow make use of that. And so that vision was really for infill housing. Use up what we can, make sure that people even in a small dwelling can benefit from that. This is a little different. This is an actual development of houses. So the first question is whether there should be a planned development rather than a special use. And the second question is, we've gone from, odd-shaped lots to actually large, regular-shaped lots that could serve for townhomes or a house. Tell me, if you can, why we've made that change.
Sure. The original impetus for the efficiency home was actually brought by an applicant. It wasn't brought forward by the city. So that was how this got started. And this was an individual who was did a really amazing research of all the little, as you probably recall, all the weird little lots. It kind of dovetailed with an effort that city staff had been working on. Actually, this was way back when, believe it or not, when Dolores Holmes was still alderman of the Fifth Ward, and then also with, I think we actually had some discussion with her, the subsequent council member as well, Alderman Robin Simmons. We had a lot that it was one of our NSP2 lots. It was actually a double lot. It's 2105, I think it is, Darrow. It's right at the end of Darrow and right adjacent to Twiggs Park. And our council members were interested in housing that was more affordable and also provided some different, in that case, some different opportunities. Smaller houses that people might want to downsize into from the area and, give a different housing option. And that lot, even in, I honestly don't remember the zoning off the top of my head, but we could not, with the current zoning we had at the time, we'd spent a lot of time like, how could we do this? Could we do townhomes? Could we get away with this? And it was not achieving the goal of having small homes. That lot being right at the park also, we had a lot of green space, so there wasn't a whole lot of worry about great density, and even that wouldn't have been, and that was, we couldn't figure out a way to develop it in a way that would achieve the goal of having some smaller homes that were, again, not on huge lots, but were really providing a different housing type that would be beneficial to the neighborhood. And so that was partly what brought our consideration of how to do this on existing lots that are that are not non-conforming, in other words, that could be built on otherwise, just to bring a different housing type.
Excuse me, can I add to your question? But part of her question was, I think, was why is it a special? Why did you determine it was this should be a special use and not a planned development?
Because, well, partly it just our planned development has the way the planned development is written right now has enormous setbacks and stuff like that would make it not very practical for sites like this, and it wouldn't really make good use of the property. We ended up looking at that, and we tried that actually, and it didn't work.
But also I'll add when we were having the discussions, I think the original version that was brought forward did provide a process for more than one efficiency home on a lot. At the time, it wasn't anticipated that we would have that many, so it was put in there just as a consideration if it was brought forward. It did, over time, as there were more discussions, morph into having it be a planned development if more than one efficiency home was proposed. That being said, when we're comparing what we typically see a planned development to be in those minimum thresholds, It's significantly higher than what the requirement would be if you have more than one efficiency home. So that's where this proposal is coming in.
Gotcha, okay. So, understanding that, this idea of pocket neighborhoods, as you mentioned, has really taken off in the Pacific Northwest. And number of architects have kind of made their name with it and written books about it. One of them is Ross Chapin, who talks a great deal about the things that make pocket neighborhoods worthwhile. So that's kind of what we're looking at here, apart from efficiency homes. It's the idea of almost creating a small neighborhood within an existing neighborhood, which I think is actually a terrific idea.
Urbanism, it's great.
Right. The issues I would have, or the questions I have to do with, first of all, who are these houses really intended for? If we're addressing a particular housing need in the community, and you're looking at 2-bedroom units, which are only 600 square feet, with, I realize that they are standard bedroom sizes, but these are smaller than the 2-bedroom units we've seen in some of the low-income housing developments recently. So I'm trying to understand who really would benefit from this particular size, and at the rate or at the price of $359,000. That's not exactly a low price if you are trying to buy a house. So if you can walk me through sort of your vision of who would be occupying these and what your marketing is and how you know they're out there and can do this.
First of all, thanks for the question. There's a few things I'd like to touch on in answering that. So if I appear to not be answering it directly, first of all, I thank you for touching on the pocket neighborhood and urbanism and all that. Addressing the efficiency home part of it and whether or not you're expanding rights that were otherwise given before. The reality is the reason you're redoing your comprehensive general plan is because it doesn't work. It has created systemic inequities. City of Chicago's zoning ordinance wasn't rewritten. It was 1953, got rewritten in 2002. I was fortunate enough to sit on the committee that helped rewrite the City of Chicago zoning ordinance. It is now outdated. It's 20 years and it's completely outdated. And most zoning ordinances throughout the entire country are outdated. So if we start looking at solutions and we're comparing it to existing constructs that we have, it's the reason why we're 6.5 million rooftops short. To Mr. Halleck's point about size, it is the only thing that you can control in order to bring down housing costs. I agree with you that $359,000 or $379,000 is a lot of money. It's just not as much money as is otherwise out there. The average home right now, cost-wise, without the rest of the housing burden is about $3,000 a month, and then you add the cost burden on it, which is why housing itself is so far out of reach for people. To bring that to one quick answer, the answer to your question is everybody. It's individuals, it's college graduates, it's professors, it's policemen, it's firemen, it's people working at the coffee shop, it's everybody in your community. It's across demographics. There's an interesting, another Harvard study, I don't mean to be quoting Harvard studies, but they're just out there a lot, so you know, they're easy to read. They did an interesting study in 2015. It was talking about the difference between rental and sales, right? And at the peak in 2007, 69% of the country owned their own home, right? And they said that was historically off the charts. Typically 50-50 is what the balance typically is in the country between home ownership and rental. And this is the point I'm making. With that study, it did in a footnote, it said, it talked about different demographics going from rental, from owning to rental, baby boomers being the largest group. What it said in the thing is that it could not quantify the millennials because they're not even involved in the housing discussion because there isn't housing there that meets their needs. They're the largest demographic in the country. They weren't even included in the study. That's why we're 6.5 million rooftops short, and that's why we have a housing crisis. So we got to start looking at different ways of doing this. $3.59 is expensive, $3.79 is expensive, $5 for eggs is expensive, $4.50 for gas is expensive. What we're paying on materials for wood or steel, for cabinets and microwaves and appliances, what we're paying for impact fees and sewers and fire codes and things like that, it's outrageous. Nobody's getting rich on our side at $3.59 or $3.79. And when you look at a performer, you look at the cost, it's what it costs. And it's a lot less than what the other alternatives are. And that's all we can solve for. Now, unless you want to get into Section 8, you talked about some of that. A lot of those programs have failed because with the people that get those jobs, right, on the Section 8, that's the lowest common denominator. You're not getting that quality there. That developer's coming in, he's building with 2x4s and not putting any insulation in it, and the R value sucks. And the people can't even afford to pay their utility bills because the house is built so bad. And you got to dispose of the house in 7 to 10 years because it's built like garbage. I wouldn't let my dog live in most of those places. And that's why a lot of those Section 8 programs have failed, because the housing is so bad. And then you got to go to the government to supplement, because then they're picking up the tab. We're not asking anybody for anything. This is for market.
So I appreciate your points, and I certainly agree that construction costs are a huge issue dealing with. I think my question is, who is going to pay $350,000 to $379,000 for a 600 square foot home? And what I'm asking is, buying a home is different from renting a home.
Yes.
If you have no choice, you will rent what's available. You will maybe have to pay what's available.
Yeah.
And it's just a quick question about where your marketing studies have led you for our community to understand who is going to buy this.
There's an 800 square foot home that just sold a couple blocks away for $335,000 that was built in 1952.
But that's 800. 800 square feet.
Compared to 600.
Right.
So.
Huge difference is all
No,
I'm saying.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is. I think you have 2 bedrooms. You're lacking a lot of these bungalows that were built have longer hallways. We don't have hallways in the way these are designed efficiently. We have better outdoor space than that bungalow has. It's better built. The utility bills are going to be far less. The layout is far better. You can walk into a 600 square foot unit or an 800 square foot unit or a 1,200 square foot unit, and sometimes the space doesn't feel really much different. And that's really true. So if you think about where you live in your house, I don't know, I live in my living room, my kitchen, and my bedroom. And I did that when I had a 5,400 square foot home. So the answer to your question is everybody. And if you look at what's available on the market right now, and you look at what's sold in Evanston over the last year, again, I agree with you that seems like a high number, but relative to what's out there and what's available, whoever, and I think that they will sell these, and so does the realty community, like that, still at that price point, they're going to have a more energy efficient home, cleaner air, better R value, lower utilities, almost no HOA. So their cost burden, now forgetting just mortgage and interest, principal interest, another interesting point to that is you look at income levels, right? So it used to be that you spend 30% of your take-home pay, right, your gross pay on housing. The cost burden to a home right now has people well over 50%. So that's who's living there. It's people that are making that amount of money, that can afford that amount and still be able to go out and buy groceries, which is not what we're having in the country right now. So that's the argument for smaller, better built products.
So I'm going to let this go for a little bit because I think we've probably beaten it up enough. So really, you're telling me that you're not marketing this at a particular segment,
No.
but that you feel the price and the size will respond to the fact that there are people looking for housing.
Every demographic.
Okay. I think I might argue with you about that, but we'll leave that for that.
Hopefully post-mortem, we could have a cup of coffee on the site and we'll.
I have some questions on design, but
Go ahead.
I want to see if my other commissioners want to talk in more general terms before I dig into that.
I had one, this is sort of design. sort of a design issue, I guess. Garbage.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It occurred to me, just looking at the plan, that, you have I think it's screened, right? The garbage area that's
Yeah.
by the alley. First of all, garbage trucks are coming down that alley to get the single families, and also they're going to pick up garbage there. Is that, I drove down that alley, and honestly, I can't remember. Is it concrete paved?
No,
Because that might be we might add that to our recommendation, actually, if we do recommend that you do that, because it makes a whole lot of difference.
Do what?
Pave the alley, concrete pave the alley.
come again?
Pave the alley with concrete
For the community?
for your site.
I don't think that our garbage removal there, my opinion of that is I'd like to have regular waste cans in that enclosed area and not have big metal boxes there. We're treating these as single-family homes. And
understand.
I think that's a much better use of that than having,
You're also adding
Slide
12
picture.
units on that property. It's a suggestion.
yeah, no.
So let's go, let's move on. Okay, the other thing that occurs to me is that the people that are on Grant Street, what do they do about their garbage? Do they manually carry it? Is that the expectation, they carry it in the middle of winter all the way down 300 feet to the waste receptacle?
100, yes. Yeah, and it's done, it's urban, it's done everywhere, it's,
Is it?
It is. It is. I've built in Chicago, single-family homes on 300-foot long lots, and the garbage is off the alley. So your farthest unit is 260 feet, actually, on this, and your closest one is 30 feet. Yeah, I don't see that as
Okay.
any. You walk through an apartment building to garbage on a big apartment building, and that hallway is equally as long. So,
I have them. Are you
I mean,
done?
I guess we could do it to take the garbage off of Grant. It's utilitarian at that point. The garbage should be off the back, and to the extent that the people in the front would have to walk a little bit further, that I think that's. I don't know.
It's just that you're
They had the same issue in.
the issue I'm having is that you're selling these.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you're selling these units, right? You're not managing the property. So if someone lives there and just decides that, they're not going to take their garbage out to the alley for 2 weeks, then the next person has a problem with that, and then it just goes down the line, and it's a big mess. And
So, yeah, no, there's HOA rules and things like that. So, this is a more upscale feel, and the HOA will be written, for that.
So it's an
responsibility.
HOA.
But that lot there is the same size lot as we have, and the garbage is off the back. I don't, I mean,
okay.
yeah, it's.
Well, I have a couple of follow-up questions in terms of the garbage. Is the garbage enclosure big enough to handle the 12 units? And how does one access it?
Yeah.
Because it looks like the only way to access it is off the, well, it's not even off the alley, it's through the middle of your accessible parking space.
Respectfully, that probably isn't the best drawn there. There's going to be a door from the Grant Street side that would lead into that. We have plenty of room there to make that larger or smaller per recommendations. I'm not,
Okay, I
it's
mean, I
certainly,
think
it's certainly
that
important.
that's-
We're not dying on the sword on it. We
No, I mean,
want to
I
make it work for sure.
I don't think it works from that drawing. It's,
I agree with you.
and the other question I have is, why can't you have the required rear setback for the parking spaces? That's one of the variations that's being
We
requested.
can. No, we can. The 3 foot versus the 0 lot line.
Yeah, I mean-
We certainly can. I think, respectfully to the architect, they draw it, and sometimes you catch things that you cause a problem that isn't otherwise there. There's no rhyme or reason to that error, we could certainly make it 3 feet off without a problem.
So, and then I think the final question really has to do with, so you're proposing the sale of the individual units and then all of the ground will be HOA?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right, so some further questions here on design for you. So one of the things Chapin talks about with pocket neighborhoods is how important it is to have that common green space area, which you've included, which I like to see. But you've also got kind of a concrete walkway just going through the middle of it, which I understand everybody has to get to their unit. But one of these ideas is trying to make that center green space be more active and be something that's more communal for folks. So I'm trying to understand how the unit green areas kind of complement common green areas. Do these units, I know they have porches, do they have patios off the side?
Yes.
Because that's not shown
No.
too clearly on the
And
plan.
we went back and forth on it a little bit, but, and we actually have built one of these to test it and things, and we were debating whether or not to have a glass slider off the kitchen or whether or not that should be windows. And the reality is that unit feels better with glass sliders. And I think that people will probably want to have a little barbecue than off the kitchen, so if to walk to their front door to walk around to get to a little barbecue. So that part's going to be redrawn. That'll be permeable pavers as well on it, and we're going to go back to the double glass door there, and that was talked about at the time that we made this submission. We think that works better. And then you have 2 means of egress in it as well. You've got the front door, and then you've got that door off the kitchen. And I think that it feels better.
So as we look at that plan, then you've got, you'll have various sides of these houses. Some of them will have, you'll always have the private side facing the private side of an adjoining house, but you will have some shared common spaces and then
Yeah.
private area for
And
them.
just to that, we went back and looked at it, and the homes facing and opposite to each other, it actually works better if they're all uniform, so that the side yards, everybody kind of has their own side yard then, and the 2 side yards aren't abutting. So we're going to reorient to that so that the homes themselves will go the same direction on each side, and it'll create better side yard space. And as it relates to the sidewalk down the middle, you're 100% right. We had it drawn originally that had a little bit of a zig and a zag to it. Efficiency-wise, it's going to be better with a common walkway and that. But what's not drawn here, and it's just drawn with greenery, there should be some sort of like gazebo, maybe a common sitting area and park and this type of thing that'll all be incorporated as part of a landscape plan that we'll come up with respectfully. That's a little bit, next step type thing, but I would assure you that is part and parcel to what we're trying to create there, and when we get to that point, that will be as well vetted as the homes.
Okay. There's not a lot of storage in these houses, obviously. 2 closets, 1 in each bedroom. There's no coat closet, there's nothing else. Have you thought about having kind of a common building towards the trash room area that might allow for some more storage?
Yes, but you're going to have, you wind up putting 12 there, we're going to have more impervious area, and it's going to go against the flood issues and all this, and what we're trying to create as a pocket neighborhood. What we're talking about doing is in that front porch area, it's actually a little bit larger than it probably needs to be, and again, we've built this in our factory, so we know what it is. And we've talked about making a closet as part of that in the front, since we have that space there, and putting a closet in there, in the front part to give a bit more storage. And it's a fair comment to it. So we've kind of played with that. We might decrease that front porch space just a little bit to get some closet space in there.
Where is the water heater and the furnace? I know I can see where the air conditioner is, but
So there's a little bit, The furnace itself is going to be referred to as a VTAC unit, which is basically 24-inch by 24-inch heat pump that'll sit above the area, which is the hallway between the bedrooms and the up against the bathroom wall on that side of the house. Then the washer and dryer will go in the hallway. There's a closet over there. We're putting another closet into the bathroom. So we flip that bathroom around just a little bit to create some better space. And the water heater will be on-demand hot water for the unit, and that's a better, more efficient way of doing it. We're also looking at solar options here, either on top of these roofs, potentially at the garage. We'd like to have an incorporation there of solar. We're consulting with a few solar companies right now on the best way to do that. So these are a few of those things, yeah.
Okay. I'm glad you've got the parking in the back. I think that's one of the things that makes the site work.
Well, I think that we again, we were told we didn't need to have any, and we thought, well, you still do. I mean, you still got to sell them, you know. So it's one thing to not be required to do it. It's another thing to have a product that works. And we have 15 spaces for the 12 units as well as one handicap.
The one thing I got surprised at is I have no objection to hardy board, but using a variety of materials seems to be one of the things that does help make small houses not look like some uniform thing that's just been stamped onto the site.
I agree.
What about variating the roof lines? What about adding some lofts to some of the units so that there is a little bit of extra space, as well as making it look as if it is an actual neighborhood and not just something that's plunked down there? I realize, I know cost has a lot to do with this.
No, but it doesn't on that. It really doesn't. There's different thoughts to it. There's a great project in, and now I'm drawing a blank on where it is, in Illinois, towards southern Illinois for 88. The gentleman's project is called Harbor, I'll remember it probably after we leave here. And this guy was absolutely brilliant. I mean, and he bought this huge farm that is right off of the Illinois River, and then dredged it out to create this great boating area that you then boat onto the Illinois River. And the homes that he has on this, it's a huge site. It range from $1.5 million, McMansions, down to tiny homes, And he's got one area where he did a pocket neighborhood, and and the elevations on there, and the color scheme were all different, and it's beautiful. I mean, there's a great argument for that. Then there's an argument for uniformity and how that looks. And I don't know that I'm not as artistic as I'd like to be, and certainly defer to people that have a keener eye to it than I do. I don't have I think they're both beautiful. There's something about simplicity and uniformity, and then there's something to be said for a wider palette, and we could do both. As it relates to the roof line and things like that, where the height of this slopes from 9 feet on the one side up to 12 feet. We do have some room for some loft space, and we're going to build in some storage, which is up towards the front of it, because it pitches from the kitchen at 9 feet to the front of the house at about 12. So there's some room up in that front bedroom in upper area for some closet space and storage space as well. We certainly have a little bit of a parapet up there, and it could potentially look at ways of using space up there. You start getting into structural things at that point, right? Because instead of holding up a roof, you're now holding up whatever it is, storage, bikes, and that complicates the form follows function application to this. But the other thing that bigger houses do, is just a general rule, is if you're building stuff at $200 a foot, that means that the closet that you put your shoes in, or your Christmas lights in, or whatever, is also $200 a foot. And you look at what people pay for a storage unit, locker, an 8x8 locker, I think you've got a paradigm shift that's, and we still need to create more space here, I would agree, but I think you're looking at a paradigm shift. It's how people live and then how people store their stuff, right? And they don't need to have, a huge gigantic closet for their Christmas lights if they're paying $200 a foot for that space. And that's just a change that we're looking at nationally and how we build. It could use a little bit of work, acknowledged, but.
But, excuse me, but are you seeing that change in single-family homes? Because we're seeing that, people who, millennials you brought up earlier, love to live in a small space, but then they want to have the communal areas as well as having all their storage in the basement, things like this. What is unique about this is these are individual units, and so you don't have that same feature of a common lobby with a game room or social room, whatever you want to call it.
The millennials don't have as much stuff as we have, or we've accumulated, nor do they want it. The study on the millennials is it's a bit strange in that they want the opportunity to pack up and move to Seattle at a moment's notice. Yet statistically, they stay where they're at more than any of the demographics. So what their thought is and how they actually live is 100% completely different. And they move in with a suitcase and their gaming system and a TV set. And so I think the accumulation of stuff generally as a trend is I think we're at certainly the problem that we have in the country isn't because we've created the right type of housing. So I think we're at a paradigm shift anyway. And I support the comprehensive general plan and direction the city of Evanston is going, like other very progressive cities and states, recognizing that, again, $200 a foot for a closet, you can't just keep layering that in and expecting the people to be able to pay for it. So there's going to be a little bit of give and take. And I would agree that some of it is certainly in the storage. I mean, there's certainly a lack of extra space, but we'll try and program the outdoor space, certainly, more landscaping, more communal space. That's why we put the porches out front, too. We like that, people being out in their homes as an urban concept, right? You want eyes on your street and on your pocket neighborhood, and people be able to say hello to their neighbor instead of pulling into their garage, closing their door, and never knowing anybody's name.
Got another question. Maybe we ask this in other ways, but because a single-family home, even a small one, has, the ratio of floor area to exterior, roof and walls and all that, and you're paying for those roof and walls, whereas in a townhome, you have less. So did you consider townhomes, and why not?
Well, I think townhomes get you back to the same place that has caused the problem, generally speaking. I mentioned that in the efficiency home, right? You could do, in terms of how that's laid out, you can do 500 on the first floor and 500 on the second home, and I'd say that that's a townhouse, right? And when you start doing that, you start getting into costs that are $650, $750, $800, and you're just kind of perpetuating the problem. I mean, it's great for the developer. I mean, I would,
Well, that would be more expensive, you're saying, than.
It would be way more expensive. And I was, at a community group meeting, a gentleman who's here tonight as well, asked me, why don't you just go build, two, $1.5 million homes on those lots? They're big lots. You could sell them for $1.5 million and you make more money. He's probably right. We'd still be $6.5 million at rooftop short in the country. You'd still be adding to the problem, and you still wouldn't be doing what you guys should be doing in your comprehensive plan. And so it's not always just about, every last. I'm not sitting here to say I've got some golden halo on, and being completely altruistic. But there is a lot of that. I've been doing attainable housing. We don't call it affordable because I don't like the term to it. But since the early 2000s in Chicago with Alderman Preckwinkle when she introduced that ordinance, and it's certainly something that motivates us a lot, and we want to be part of that solution and not just perpetuate. We're going to be building $1.5 million home in Evanston. It's going to be beautiful. It's great, 4-bedroom with a 5th bedroom in the lower level, full basement, plenty of storage. It's $1.5 million. That doesn't help. It doesn't help the people living in Evanston. We'll make more money, but
I have just a clarification question on the rendering there. It shows a street.
yeah.
That's where the sidewalk goes, is it not?
Yeah, I apologize for that rendering. It was taken from a different project. We've laid out this home before, so it was really more just to show what the front of the home looks like than the focus on the street itself. It's not an architect, that one's not to be specific to Grant Street, no. But it does show the front of the house. And that's a stucco type of finish. Hardy's got a new panel that's an architectural panel with those types of reveals that they're coming out. They've had it out west. They're introducing it in the Midwest this spring. I particularly like postmodern, but we could do that with board and batten and siding and turn it into a farmhouse. And, it doesn't matter. The box is what the box is, and how you.
Are these prefabricated module units that you're working with here?
In what context? I mean, they are. The walls themselves, so we.
Right,
so
just SIP panels or what?
Yeah, and the other company we have is called SIP Homes, XYIP, X and Y being the XY axis. But the walls themselves are light gauge insulated wall that we pre-make the walls, and then we build the building on site. So it's not modular in the volumetric modular context. It is site modular, and it's similar in a lot of ways, and the business model to SIP Homes actually is Sears Roebuck of turn of last century. It's the catalog house. It's how do you do these things more efficiently? We've gotten away from that. So with the catalog houses with Sears, you bought your house, they put it all in a rail car, they shipped it to your site, you and your friends built it, or you hired Sears and they would bring a general contractor and they'd build it for you, or some collection of that. And it was a great business model. And now we've gotten away from that, right? Completely away from that. And gotten to general contractors doing everything, whatever. And now you've got a labor shortage and you've got material shortages. And the better builders today are looking at ways of building more modular. And that's, again, a different context. I didn't mean to ask it that way. But as much stuff as you can do off-site modularly, the more you can bring down the costs on site. Your carrying costs become significantly less. Your house is up quicker. You can get to market quicker. And the product's way better. If you look at the quality of that wall, when that wall goes up, it's dead on straight versus your 2x6 chuck in a truck framed wall that you see built.
I have just a couple quick questions. Number one, in the drawing that we have of a unit, the bathroom does not appear to be ADA compliant. I'm assuming that is, I mean, you can't have the door open into the toilet with the sink there, and I don't think even I could get into the shower very easily.
That unit, that part of the layout has changed a little bit, and we'll get you an updated rendering where that's laid out differently than that bathroom is.
All right.
Location's the same, but the layout is different.
Okay. And you keep talking about, obviously we are aware that we're doing a comprehensive plan change. Do you feel in any way this is the horse before the cart before the horse?
No, I think for this city, I think nationally, I think the horse is left, the barn's burning. It's crisis mode. Your lack of housing. You had made a point that I failed to address earlier regarding rentals, and they get absorbed so quickly, right? And the reason they get absorbed so quickly is they're mostly, especially on the home side, they're the worst product out there. So somebody comes to rent that because the person couldn't sell it and still thinks it has some life left in it, and it probably has 30 to 40 years of deferred maintenance in it. But the person's going to do it has a budget, and they can only afford so much. So they're moving into the home, and they still, even people that are buying the lower cost homes, they can't afford to put the new roof on. They can't afford to put decent insulation in the walls. They can't afford a high efficiency furnace. They're moving in because that's what they can afford. So when you just kind of look at it and say, well, we don't really have a housing problem because our units rent so quickly. No, that's part of the problem. You're perpetuating bad housing. And it's going to get worse because that person that just rented it on 30 to 40 years deferred maintenance and doesn't have the money to fix it is going to move out with 40 to 50 years of deferred maintenance. It doesn't get better. So, no, I don't think you've got the cart ahead of the horse at all. I think, again, I think that the barn's burning. You know, and other municipalities across the country recognize as well, if you want people to continue to live in your community and be able to afford to and live well, right, and not be at 50% on a cost burden analysis to their housing costs versus everything else, you've got to start thinking this direction. And every day that you don't do this, something like this, start thinking like this, it just gets worse. You go from $6.5 million to $7.5 million to $10.5 million, and it doesn't get better. You can't make it up in volume.
And I keep hearing you talk about extremes. There's no housing in Evanston that is acceptable to people. Because you keep talking about Section 8 and it's deferred and all the rentals are deferred, or we have a $1.5 million home. And I mean, I personally live in a condo. That's a choice I've made. I couldn't afford a house in Evanston. That was part of the choice I made as well. I wanted to live in Evanston. I can't afford a house in Evanston, so I'm going to live in a condo.
When did you buy the condo?
2008 or 2006. Yes, I bought in right before everything tanked.
So just so you know, since 1997, I think was the date, the cost of housing has doubled. So for you and I to think that the problems that we had, that we solved 15 or 20 years ago, are also then solvable for the next generation is just fallacy. It's far greater. And just because we keep masking it doesn't solve the problem. And I'm not saying that there isn't quality housing in Evanston. Evanston's a great community, and it's got great architecture, and it has great new developments as well. I'm a huge fan. I'm not here to bash Evanston at all. I've lived in this community my entire
And that's not what I'm
entire
accusing you
life.
of. It's
So,
just that we're hearing the two extremes.
But statistically though, if you look at the housing that's been sold here and what it costs, and then if you then just focus on new housing and what it costs, you come to the same conclusion that I do. The only thing that you can control in building right now to bring costs down is size. There's no other magic bullets. Unless you could build a little bit cheaper. You could but that little bit cheaper is the stuff that makes the house livable. It's insulation, it's better R value, better sound attenuation. It's what makes the quality of things. So you don't want to cut there. The Section 8 game and the affordable housing game does a lot of that, by the way. I'm not a big fan of it, which is why we've never played it, which is why we didn't come here and ask for it. Right? What we're asking for is a for-market product that we think we can deliver at a price that's better, still expensive, but better than what's out there. And it'll be bought up by people that are downsizing, that want to stay in Evanston but don't want to live in an apartment building or a condo building. They want their own four walls. It'll be bought up by somebody that's working in your fire department and your police department. And that's going to be your neighborhood. And you've got to start looking at ways of getting housing like that. And I applaud the city of Evanston, actually. You've got a great ADU rights. In my opinion, and we build ADUs in Chicago. We have a company called Chicago Granny Flats. So we adopted that. We're building ADUs, and we built a few here at Evanston. You have the best ADU units, in my opinion, in the country. You guys did a phenomenal job with it. Extremely progressive. You're to be applauded for it. And I applaud the fact that you're moving forward with the changes that you're making on your plan. I've offered, as you can see, I'm not short on words. I'm happy to be at the, if not now, when, right? It was the question earlier, right? I think now, and, happy to give whatever opinions or advice it is. But I think you're at the right time. I think you guys recognize that. It's a first step. It might hurt a little bit, or it might look a little bit different than you've done before. But if you really look back at what your goals are, right? If you're really serious about your plan, I would argue. This is kind of what you should be looking towards. This solves that. This solves the systemic inequities that you've addressed. It doesn't if you build $800,000, $1.5 million, $800,000 townhomes and $1.5 million home. It doesn't change that statistic. It perpetuates it. So barn's burning. Keep going.
Any other questions from commissioners? I do have a number of citizens who have signed up to speak.
Just one thing, the staff suggested that the units that face Grant Street be oriented toward the street.
None of them do.
Not a problem?
None of them do.
Not a what?
None of the homes face Grant Street.
No, I'm asking if the
Oh.
your two end units could face Grant Street.
Oh, sure. Yeah, there's no, we can play with that. I mean, we got the front yard setback a little bit, and they're a little bit longer than they are fat, so, we got a 27-foot setback. I don't know what that does to that on the site, especially if we're going to increase the trash area, right? So it's a little bit of give and take, but from a basic question standpoint, there's no rhyme or reason that it couldn't be, for sure, yeah. I'm sorry?
We'll get to you in just a minute.
No, I don't think, our setback on there, we were at 27, is that correct?
Yeah, the setback for this plan that's being reviewed tonight is at 27 feet.
Which meets the code. So we tried to do as much as we could to meet the code without coming in, asking for a whole bunch of stuff. So the 27 is the required setback, and we met it. If it changes, if we have to turn it, again, we got to look at the side yard setbacks then and how that relates to the back of them, but in theory, we try and make that work, for sure.
Anything else? All right, at this point, I'm going to open up the floor.
Thank you all for your time. I really
Sure, and
genuinely appreciate it.
you'll come up at the end
Okay.
afterwards and be able to address any other concerns that have been raised in public comment. So at this point, I'm going to call on Pamela Powell Rosenbusch. You're the first speaker. And I'm not putting time limits on anyone, but please do be respectful of time.
I didn't know of some of the changes that have been made, so some of what I say may be out of place. Hello, I am Pamela Powell Rosenbusch. I have lived at 1914 Grant Street for over 48 years in an over 100-year-old Victorian farmhouse that was moved when Haven School was built on Prairie. It is opposite 1917 Grant Street. I'm an 80-year-old widow who lives alone with my dog. I believe this proposed development is wrong for Evanston and for me and for my neighborhood and my neighbors. The 12 proposed dwelling units are too much density. That is traffic, parking, use of water, sewer, etc. When there is a maximum of 6 units as permitted by the zoning lot now. The open parking in front of my house on Grant Street will be gone when I want to stop back to pick up something I forgot, or when I bring home the heavy dog food bag and push it in my red wagon I keep on my front porch into my house. It is easier to park in the front than in the back because it's closer to the kitchen. And then I said in here, with 12 houses, there is not enough parking in the back to accommodate the possible up to 24 cars that these tenants may have, and therefore they will be parking on Grant and Brown Streets. I think 15 spaces aren't enough because most people have 2 cars if they have 2 people living in the houses. Brown is already like an obstacle course when you drive either direction, is often a tight fit to drive in Brown if there are delivery vans or trucks parked. I've even had to back up because I couldn't go down the street. And if there are more people parking on the street, a lot of people that live in don't like to park behind in the alley. They want to park on Grant Street. And we have like the 5 units, 2 over, or well, I guess it'll be next to them. A lot of those people park on Grant Street. They don't park in the spot in the back in the alley. They like to come in, especially if they live at the front. They want to park on the Grant Street and walk in. And I also thought that the setback was going to be changed. Now he says it's not going to be changed, so I was concerned about that. And I thought if the unit is facing onto me and it was going to be 18 feet, I really didn't like that. But if he's going to change that, that's something I can't complain about. Also, people in the front two houses will be facing into my front room windows. That's what I was worried about. I am therefore opposed to these zoning changes, and thank you for listening to me.
Next up is Cindy Beebe, and I apologize if I mispronounce any names.
Hi, my name's Cindy Beebe. I live at 1915 Noyes Street, which is, Pam lives right across the street from where the new project would be built. My house is directly behind Pam's, behind the alley, so I'm straight through there. For many reasons, I think that the Land Use Commission should vote no on this proposal tonight. Perhaps the most important is also the most obvious. The City of Evanston is currently undergoing a complete zoning review by HDR Architecture. Evanston is paying HDR $750,000 to update the city's zoning and planning codes. The review is expected to take approximately 2 years to complete, and we're about 6 months into that now. Affordable housing is a major issue in the review. This Grand Street proposal wants to use 2 large residential lots for an unforeseen and unplanned for use to build many tiny houses on 2 large lots zoned R3. No zoned residential lot has ever been used for this purpose. Crucially, neither the city staff, the city attorney, the city council, the Land Use Commission, nor HDR Architecture has ever researched, studied, or discussed this issue with city experts or with Evanston residents. This is a completely new and untried idea with absolutely no data or planning behind it. A friend of mine is a zoning attorney, and he told me the first rule of zoning is the law of unintended consequences. We see that here in this proposal. When this rule was passed by the city in October of 2021, it was with the understanding that small and odd-sized lots that were unfit for any other use would be ideal locations for tiny houses to be built on otherwise unusable parcels of land. It's in the description in the memorandum dated October 31st, 2021, when city staff writes, and I quote, "Since efficiency homes are intended for small or odd-shaped lots that are otherwise challenging to build on, ... end quote. Within 2 blocks of this Grand Street location, there are public housing units, apartments, condominiums, townhouses, duplexes, and single-family homes. On the property immediately to the east is a 5-unit townhouse development. On the property to the immediate west is another 5-unit townhouse development. The first 2 tiny houses in Evanston are now being built almost directly across the street from my house on Noyes Street, on a long but very narrow piece of land that could never be used for any other type of dwelling than a tiny house. In a way, I think that the developer has done the city a favor by proposing this project now while the city is in the middle of our full zoning review with HDR Architecture. If Mr. Wallach hadn't brought this proposal to us now, I don't know that anyone would have studied this idea during the zoning review, because I don't know that it would have occurred to anyone. It should be noted that even in Mr. Wallach's presentation tonight, he said that the size of efficiency houses makes no sense. It should also be noted that there is no support for this project in our neighborhood, which we, by the way, all know is the best neighborhood in Evanston. Just ask us. Understandably, this developer, who would also be the manufacturer of the proposed dwellings, is anxious to build this project now. He would create a precedent by doing so. But I think it's far more sensible for the Land Use Commission to vote down this proposal tonight, but also send this idea for this project to the zoning review company so that it can be part of our $750,000 review. Perhaps the city will eventually find that they want to use our valuable residential land to build many tiny houses all over Evanston. Perhaps not. But either way, the Land Use Commission and the City Council should only make their decisions after researching, studying, and discussing the permanent ramifications of this proposed zoning amendment. That way, you can render an informed decision that will stand the test of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Beebe. The next speaker I have signed up is Eric Polly.
I'd like to thank everybody for being here tonight. We live about 1,000 yards away from, 100 yards away from this proposed development. The addition of 13 new living spaces would increase the density of the neighborhood far past the R3 zoning, and we don't think it's appropriate. We live 2 blocks away from a grade school and a middle school, and all the kids walk past it right down Grant Street. There's going to be a crush of traffic by people in the houses and the neighbors dropping people off to school. Our lawyer here doesn't know how to predict the property values. He's saying, oh, it won't bring down property values, but I think there's a excellent chance that it will. And there are a lot of people in our neighborhood, even as pretty as it is, that live on fixed income, and they can't afford a reduction in property value. Yeah, I think it should speak to the regulations and zoning right now, and not for something in the future. And we're all against it in the neighborhood. I haven't spoken to anybody that was supporting it. I just think people are going to hate it when they move in. They're going to say, this is not appropriate.
Thank you, Mr. Polly.
Thank you very much.
The next person, and I am going to ruin this name probably, so I will ask you, since you know when you signed up, if you would like to just give us your name and address, please.
My pleasure. My name is Joe Matthias Shelbert, so thank you for not butchering it in public. It happens all the time because I teach at Evanston Township High School, and so first day of class is always to show that everyone has unique and wonderful names. And by the way, another reason is I do teach astrophysics, and I do teach astronomy as well as physics, and I know data, and I know numbers, and Eric, you live less than 500 feet away from this project, not 1,000 yards. I am an Evanston resident. I've lived here my entire life, with the exception of my time in California to get my degree in physics, so I can come back here and teach at ETHS. And this project is a disaster. I'm just going to say it. And I do have experience in this. I've been in the mortgage industry since 1993, in and out, but I am currently an active licensed mortgage person, and I know real estate, and I know investments, and I know a good thing, and I know a bad thing. When I first bought my property in Evanston, this whole idea that it's unaffordable is crap. There's a property for sale for $140,000, 2-bedroom, 1-bath on Central Street. That's where I first moved back in 1993 for much less. So they are very, very affordable places. Looking at the numbers, in the last 12 months from December 1st, 2022 to December 1st, 2023, the average sale price was $247 per square foot. His latest numbers, over 1,000. How is that affordable? How is that dealing with inequity? It's a scam. By the way, the median is 237, right? The difference between median and I don't need to explain it to you guys, which means that the majority of these things are actually more affordable than more expensive. They're not multi-million-dollar homes. There are things that are actually more affordable. Yes, they need cleanup, but my property, which was actually on here, by the way, I forgot to mention, I live at 1905 Grant Street, which is 2 doors east, and half of my property was pictured in that one picture. I bought a foreclosed property, did a gut rehab. I have a 2-story property, and it's worth what it is. And this project will definitely bring it down. For properties that are on sale right now, the average price is $254 a square foot. That's actively as of Saturday. pulled from the MLS. The median is 227. Those are for attached. For single-family homes, it's 312 and 305. So again, these numbers are all huddled together. It's not like they're spread out. His number is over $1,000 a square foot. How does that deal with inequity? How does that deal with affordable housing? That doesn't make any sense. Let the numbers speak for themselves. This project is the ultimate what I call shrinkflation. We've seen it in the last few years where they package less and charge more. That's what this is. He's reducing the size of these units and charging more. The math doesn't lie. You just need to do the math and listen to our math. When he presents his information, it's like asking the fox, what is the security of the hen house, right? His numbers are flawed. They are manipulated to make this sound like he's doing good for Evanston, and it's doing very bad stuff. Flooding. No, we don't flood. I've lived there for 11 years. I've never had a single flood in my basement, not a one. My house was built in 1918, renovated by the current owner's husband, who did my house, and it's fabulous. My heating bill is less than $100 a month because I use spray foam insulation. So again, this whole idea that these properties in this neighborhood are deteriorating and Evanston doesn't have affordability, it's not true. Look at the numbers. Do your research, because we did, right? Additionally, he's asking to put on, I just looked on the latest thing, the AC unit, right? It's on the back of the properties. Well, that's a 10-foot or 6-foot setback with the pad. I believe there's a 10-foot required setback for AC pads, are there not? Isn't that true? Where is it in this application asking for that variance? It's a sloppy job. It's a sloppy con job, right? I feel like this is the monorail of The Simpsons, if anybody knows that episode. Yeah, it's just, and again, we can go on and on. This is a zone R3 property. Build something that fits zoning R3. When I had to do my rehab, I had to do everything to a T. I even asked for a variance and it was denied for, guess what? AC pad, right? And so, yeah, the logical thing here to do is to deny. Finally, I just want to enter a couple of things. Solar? No. It doesn't work. I teach astronomy. It has to be south-facing. Look at the canopy. There, if anything, there'll be about 2 hours, 3 hours of direct sunlight. The rest of it has an angle, and if anybody knows anything about luminosity and concentration, it happens, between 11 and 1. That's it. So to put them on here, again, it's a con job. It's not going to happen. It would make this thing unworthwhile. This is a money grab, plain and simple, by the developer. He's lining his pockets. Anything else is a scam, and I really, really hope that my community represents the community, because as you can see, nobody here is for this, not a one. I hope that resonates in your heads. Thank you.
Next up is Gary Kelly. Carrie, maybe? Carrie?
Anything that sounds somewhat.
Well, I have two names that are very similar here. So I have
Mine's Garen.
I have Garen Ferry.
That's me.
That's you, but I have someone before you that's Gary, and it looks like Kelly, maybe, or. Okay. Oh, okay. So if you want to come up, or if you don't want to speak, okay. I'll go to you now, Mr. Ferry, and
Thank you.
You have the floor.
I think what he was saying was the occupancy maximums, right? For the two-bedroom maximums? Yes. How many people maximum can live in these units, I think is what he was going to ask.
Okay.
So, okay. I don't want to go counterpoint from the presentation. I think a lot of people will do that. I did make a couple notes, but I kind of wanted to stay more on task to how this affects our community and put my emotions into my community rather than negative reactions that I have to presentation. So first of all, my name is Garen Ferry. I live near the proposed development site. I live around, these are all my neighbors. Hi, it's good to see you. And so I wanted to come here and I wanted to take the opportunity to address you guys as a land use committee, my neighbors and the developer and Evanston as a whole, because it does affect Evanston as a whole if these text amendments and these permits go through. My personal anecdotes about being in this community is, though I haven't lived here a long time, it's a place where I can see myself living for a long time. In the short time that I've been residing here, I'm blown away with the involvement, the care, the community interaction that this neighborhood embodies. We're more than cup of sugar neighbors. We help and care for each other in times of need and in times of sharing. Our children are babysat by our neighbors' children, who are babysat by their neighbors' children. And I see that this feeling in the community is real and unparalleled. And this is the reason why I moved to Evanston in the first place. I moved 12 times in 10 years before we moved here. And this was the reason why, because of what Evanston has to offer. That's why I think that this proposal, when we look at our general, when we're looking at the general plan, is antithetical to what we're trying to achieve with the general plan. So my specific concerns about the project, of course, everyone talks about the density, but mine in particular was infrastructure, not just parking. Things like trash collection, the unpaved alley in the back where the carport is proposed to be, now with no setback, so no turning radius to get in. It's not accessible to that part of the street for much of the year. The people that live there don't use the alley because of inclement weather, unpaved surface, potholes, and snow. We have people that don't have cars that use that alley as a walkway that don't use it in the winter because it's inaccessible. And to put 12 to 24 cars through that alley is going to really, it's going to exacerbate the problem. It's really important to point out that Grant Street, where it's at, in its juxtaposition to McCormick, Prairie, and even Gulf, it's an alternative access route for any construction that's going on Gulf or McCormick. This is a major through street, which also needs to be mentioned. It's only single-side parking, so cutouts and setbacks are kind of a moot point to talk about. So it's one of the busiest, the busiest from a traffic standpoint, not just parking, in the area due to its proximity to the schools for drop-offs and pickups, due to people cutting through to get around the corners of Green Bay and McCormick. This is a very, very highly used thoroughfare, and children walking to school. Twice a day we have the pickups. We talked about storm drains, and yeah, right, we haven't had much flooding, but a lot of that has to do with us going out and raking our storm drains and things like that. He talks about reducing roof space to reduce flooding. There's one property there. There's less roof space now than the proposed roof space we would have. There is green space. There is a place for storm water to go. It's not as big of a deal. But there are other things like power grid, and I think to take into consideration for the infrastructure. Now, I know that, like I said, I don't believe that this proposal is in the spirit of what we're trying to aspire to be. We're making national news for trying to heal. Our general plan is trying to heal stains on our community like redlining. Now, how does this serve that? It doesn't serve that. He says attainable or approachable because he can't say affordable. He said he doesn't want to say affordable. It's a really interesting term to use. I'm not paying $1,000 a square foot. I scrape and I try. We're not paying that. This project is being sold like a good pitch, but it's not interested in the type of people that are going to buy there to be a part of the community. It's made by a manufacturer to sell it as a developer so he can double dip, to carpetbagging hedge funds that can come in and sell it as rental properties and Airbnbs. How does that serve our community? It doesn't. This is not affordable. We want affordable housing in our community. We stand behind it. It's something that we'd strive for because we see that we could help our community and it would be an asset to our community to include diversity and people that need a foothold in a community that cares for them. This one is a little reactionary to the last meeting that we had, but I think it's worth pointing out that when I brought up my concerns about infrastructure to the developer, he cut me off mid-sentence to say that I was talking about parking. And when I clarified, I was talking about infrastructure as a whole and what improvements, as Commissioner Halleck brought up, what improvements he'd be making with the alley paving or anything like that. He scoffed at me, insulted my intelligence, and decided to give me a basic civics lessons that more tax base means that more money to the municipality means that municipality can pay for improvements. No consideration to help our community. He doesn't understand our community. He doesn't even know that it was a one-side parking street. The demonstrating that Plain Office and Evanstonian Board bread persona is all fine and good to try to sell it to us, but he told us that there's no data for us to build these communities because no one's had the guts to do it yet. Does Glenview have the guts to build an immobile home park across the street from you? I mean, this is not what this community needs. It's not approachable. It's not affordable. So don't let them spin it to you like that. The broader implications is that these special use permits and text amendments are a slippery slope that will reflect R3 zoning throughout Evanston as a whole. This is not the small, odd lots that we're trying to fill with small houses. This is 2 large lots that could be used for better uses. I think that ripping the souls out of our neighborhoods is not a way, for a profit, is not a way to serve our constituents and our city as a whole. I think that bringing up efficiency ratings of our houses is all fine and good, but putting it all on Section 8 houses being built is shoddy work. We know people in the construction industry. Best practices are changing across the board. Efficient materials are changing across the board. It's not just these small houses that are doing it. All I would like to do is address my community and let you know that there's someone here who's thinking about you and cares about these things, but also try to compel the Land Use Committee to look deeper into the data, look deeper into what's going to be serving the community, because I think this is antithetical to what we're trying to achieve. Evanston is not the first city I've lived in. It's my home, and I plan on being here for the rest of my life. So in the future, I just will dedicate myself to fight for things that I think that are important for our community. And thank you for your time.
That is the list of who I had signed up to speak. Did I miss anybody? Did anybody not get a chance to sign in? Going once, twice, okay. So with that, Mr. Wallach, you have a chance to respond or make a summary statement at the end, however you choose to use your time.
At the outset, I have a tendency to be verbose, but I think I speak clearly and in English. I don't think I need my words spit back in ways that they weren't stated. A lot of what I had heard is tantamount to a chair has 4 legs, a dog has 4 legs, therefore a dog is a chair. And I didn't say any of that. And some of the comments, I think, are illustrative of the points that I was making. First, in terms of it being new, Evanston's not new in doing this. The Midwest is behind the curve, as is the East Coast in a lot of this. And this type of development and projects have been tried and proven well. There's books written about it and communities built, and so it's not a pig in a poke in any way, shape, or form. In terms of numbers from presented by the astrophysicist, his rehab on his job, on his house that he did, and was done well from what I understand, was more than the cost of these homes. If $312 a square foot, if that's the average price that things are selling for on a 2,000 square foot home, that's $625,000. That's roughly 2 times. The numbers do not lie. I think he's right. I think the way that he's presenting them is a bit of a bait and switch. As I clearly stated, and will continue to say, that the only way to really control costs on this nationally is to decrease the size. That is the way to control costs. You can't build more and make it up in value. The numbers, you don't have to listen to me. You can call any general contractor tomorrow morning and ask them if you can build a 2,000 square foot home for the same price you can build a 600 square foot home for. And that's the issue, and that's where the numbers kind of fall in. On the money grabbing side and all that, I think that's I don't know that there's much to say. The gentleman that teaches at ETHS certainly recommended that he'd like me to build 2 large single-family homes on that site, and that would be better because he's in the business. He knows the mortgage business very well. I would assume that he's well-schooled in it, and that means that when we did that, his house would go up in value. I don't know that that makes me the money grabber, candidly. I think that if you really look at the values that we're trying to do here, it is to address the needs of the neighborhood. We do manufacture the walls. We're not a mobile home. We're far from that. As I mentioned, the quality of what we're building is better than, and I said this to the Commission on Human Relations in Chicago when we talked about housing for homeless people. I told them that if we did it, that the homes for the homeless people would be built better than the homes that they lived in. And we really believe that because that's how we build it. So the quality of it is not a Clayton home and should never be mentioned in the same breath of that. And we certainly take high offense to that. In terms of layout, the VTAC units don't require pads outside. There is no condensers outside blowing and making noise for the neighborhood. And we don't need a 10 by 10 pad in order to do so, because the VTAC is a self-contained unit that fits up into the ceiling of it and is a direct vent out of the unit and has no condenser to it. Parking density and all those things, again, the numbers don't lie. We could build, as of right, 6 townhomes there, 8 with inclusionary housing, each with 4 bedrooms. Do the math. It's 32 bedrooms. 8 times 4, 32 bedrooms. We have 24. Are we more dense? Permeable, impervious, again, you don't need words to describe it. You look at the map. You look at you look at this slide. A lot of concrete, a lot of rooftops, and the direction that you're all going to look at bulk density versus anything else is well heeled and studied, and municipalities across the country are doing the exact same thing. The last point, if you last points on solar, as I said, we were looking into it. It's a problem in the Midwest generally as to, but the solar has gotten a lot better, and because the homes that we're building are so energy efficient, we don't need the kilowatts that are needed necessarily for a 2,000 square foot home in order to do this. These homes are so well insulated that you can heat them with a blow dryer, we say, and cool them with a bucket of ice. And the properties that we've built across the country prove that out. As a result of that, even limited solar may absolutely make sense here, and we're studying density, crush of traffic. I don't know what to make of it. As it relates to the alley and infrastructure generally, my comment to that was simple. The relationship between your inhabitants, occupants, residents, and a city is one of the city protects, the city provides services, the homeowners pay taxes, it goes into schools, and this is kind of the natural thing. The developers don't come in and rebuild your streets and sewers and these type of things. So, but by creating a little bit more of a tax base, hopefully it's an argument for density. And a very good friend of mine who owns a company called Future Cities, who consults like HDR is doing with you on it, did a great study on density in Phoenix, which Phoenix now has grown, went from when he grew up there in the 1950s with 400,000 people to 4 million people. But his argument was it was more dense in the 1950s. People live closer together. And for on a mid-rise or a high-rise, every row you take off, you're costing your tax dollars for your police and your firemen. And that's really where you start hurting your community, is by starting to rip all that density out. But there's no crush of traffic. There's 12 single-family dwelling units, and we're not grabbing money. Are we making money on the sale of our walls in it? Yes, we are. We're also making development fees. Our general contractors are earning general contracting fees. Our supply houses are earning money for the materials that we're buying. The city's getting infrastructure that we're paying for. We have architects that we're employing locally. We have engineers. So I'm not, I don't even know where to go with, with that, except to say that, yes, but the money grab is highest density, highest use, greatest impact to the neighborhood. That is the money grab. There's no other way around it. Our proposal to this body is an opposite to that. And that's as clear as I can say it. We could build more density, we could build bigger units, we could potentially make more money on it, and it would be in contravention to the plan that you guys are putting forward. As it relates to whether or not, too soon, you want to wait 2 years in order to do something, the discussion was whether or not we could have been a special use and a PD from the beginning. It was discussed. It was discussed openly. We were talking to Megan and Sarah and everybody else. It was an open conversation as to what we thought was best. And we could reframe this as that as well. I just don't think it's the decision that we made at the time was it is what's being discussed right now, and this is a good opportunity for it, and a good opportunity to maybe move your efficiency stuff forward as well. And I think that opportunity is there for you, not just with this project, but hopefully others in the meantime. $312 a square foot on a single-family home that's 1,500, 2,000 square feet is not affordable. And by the way, on the affordable part, I'm not afraid to use the word at all. I don't like it. I think it's a failed policy nationally. That's my opinion. I don't like affordable housing. I think it's terrible. From a developer standpoint, the game that's played in affordable housing is we go out as a developer or a contractor and we build it for a little bit more than we could otherwise build it for because you're all paying for it. We get compensated, we sell it for less, you guys make up the difference. And if we're 10% more than we could otherwise sell it for at market, good for us because we're making more money. I don't like it. And from a community standpoint, when RFPs are put out for affordable, it goes to the lowest bidder, which means they're most likely building the crappier houses. So just for the record, that's why I don't use the word. I use the word attainable because I think it's a better word, not because I'm afraid to use the word. I think the word is bad. I think it does a disservice to the country, candidly, let alone the city of Evanston. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Wallach.
Thank you.
With that, we will close the record. Oh, do you have a couple questions? I'm sorry.
Well, not for him, but for staff, which I can do after we close the
Okay, all right. Yep. So we will close the record at this particular time for public testimony and from the applicant. To begin our deliberations, during this, we are allowed to ask questions for clarification purposes, but there's no further public testimony permitted at this point. Commissioner Lindwall, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, just a couple questions for staff. First of all, does Evanston charge impact fees, like for schools? I didn't think so. So impacts fees, it's just the standard building permit fees that would happen with a housing remodel or anything else. Okay. Thank you. That's my. I think so. There's another one, but I can't remember what it was, but that was the.
So at this point, I'll ask for just general comments, general thoughts from commissioners. Commissioner Halleck?
Yeah. I have several things. I want to start out by saying that I respect this developer. I think he has good intentions. This idea of money grabber is it really annoys me, and I'm speaking generally because if I wish the public, generally the public, not just this group, understood development and understood the risk they take and the money that they actually make, you'd have a totally different idea of development, and I think you would be much more pro-development than the typical citizen is. So I just want to say that about the developer. As far as the project goes, it's not a direct compliment. I just developers in general and maybe you in particular as part of that group. One of the criticisms I have of this project is that, one of our standards is character. The character doesn't meet the character of the neighborhood. And I think that what I see, it doesn't. But I think part of that is because there's so much that's not yet developed on this project, and the developer admitted it, I think. Plans aren't quite right. Landscaping plan isn't there. Sure, they can make changes to the roof. There's so many variables that would actually make I think, if presented, would make the project more appealing, but they don't exist now. As far as zoning goes, it's true that when we talked about these efficiency units, we talked about them for small odd lots, and this is not a small odd lot, which brings me to the maybe my major issue, which is that we don't have anyone working on a comprehensive plan. You've been talking about HDR. There's no one working on a comprehensive plan, and we've been asking, this group has been asking about that. When are we going to start the comprehensive plan for months? And because of that, I think that this issue, which is obviously would be a big part of that comprehensive plan, should have more study. A site like this, and what do we do about putting efficiency units on bigger lots? Maybe examples of different sites like this in the city, and what do we do about them, and how does it affect the neighborhoods and the current density or scale of the neighborhood? So for me, that's where I'm landing. I just think I'm not against the project. I wish it was presented in a more developed state, but I think as far as the city goes and as far as our responsibility, there needs to be much more study on the policy of what to do in these situations. And I guess the last thing is that there seems to be no support in the neighborhood, and I think this is something that would affect the neighborhood directly. So,
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Westerberg, would you like to go next?
Yes, some similar sentiments. I really like the idea of the pocket neighborhood, and I think it is an opportunity for the city to try something different and to expand home ownership to those who maybe are finding it difficult to buy a new home. I think it should be stressed that there are condominiums available for far less than $350,000, but I agree they're not single-family homes. But I think the pocket neighborhood is a great idea. My concern is that this plan kind of mixes efficiency homes with pocket neighborhoods. I'm not entirely sure that's what, again, we had discussed early on. It doesn't mean we can't consider it, but first of all, I'd love to see a marketing study of how these efficiency homes can really sell. I'd like to see an analysis of how pocket neighborhoods impact or have impacted neighborhoods in other parts of the country, and what are the lessons learned from that. I'd love to have a better understanding of how a developer can work architecturally and respect the variation in designs that exist in the neighborhood currently and be able to reflect that in the design. And I'd like to see a much better landscape plan that it kind of takes into consideration not only the common areas, but how those private green spaces work with that. So I just don't think we're there at the point where this project for me makes sense to move ahead with. If the city feels that, you don't want to wait 2 years until the comprehensive plan is done, I can understand trying to move forward a little bit, but I think a lot more work and a lot more research has to be done before I would think we're at the point where I would want to approve it.
Commissioner Lindvall?
Sure. I'm going to go back a bit and talk about the comprehensive plan. And, one of the goals for the last 50 years worth of comprehensive plans has been diversity of the housing stock in terms of building type, unit type, price, And, you know, and if you really think about Evanston, there are affordable neighborhoods all over Evanston. You know, everyone kind of thinks about some of the big houses in northeast and northwest Evanston, but, you know, Grant Street is certainly one of the neighborhoods that's one of those pockets. There's another pocket of small houses out further west off of Cowper. And you know, you look down in the area of southwest Evanston, and there are lots of very small single-family houses. Granted, you know, energy efficiency houses, you know, there are more energy efficient building materials now than when many of those houses were built, but there's affordable housing all over Evanston. And in addition to kind of the pocket neighborhood sort of thing, there have also been planned developments all over Evanston, you know, single family. You think of, I'm going to date myself, but you think of the Lower Park property, which was a big mansion that, you know, the main house was divided into, I think, 2 units, and then, you know, single-family houses were built around. Cove School is another example. The Dryden, former District 65 property at Ridge and Dempster, you know, it's got now some very big houses. But, you know, the kind of the notion of park, and actually even before that, way before my time, was the Patton Mansion over in Asbury, where it curves. Those were all instances where large properties were subdivided with city approval. So I think that the notion of doing, you know, a pocket park of smaller homes is not necessarily something that, you know, the city has, you know, they've accepted that in the past. So that's kind of a common perspective. But, you know, again, going back to the zoning amendment, really we were looking at the odd-sized lots, the small ones, and frankly, I don't even know that the efficiency amendment was necessary, since all of those existing lots are buildable lots. The only question was whether or not, you know, if it was in a single-family neighborhood, you had to have 2 parking spaces, or maybe some of the setbacks needed to be varied a little bit. So the efficiency home amendment was designed to kind of help with those situations. So I'm not necessarily opposed to the zoning amendment itself, but I'm not sure that it really solves the problem. The plan development requirements, that's where, you know, you would require a market study, a traffic study, and some of the other items that Commissioner Halleck suggested. So, so that's kind of the amendment. With respect to the project itself, we now know that the one of the very requested allowances with respect to the parking off the alley isn't necessary. And the other question, I guess the other question for staff is if more of the units were affordable under our inclusionary zoning ordinance, how many would need to be affordable in order to justify 12 units? Would it be, would 3 of them do it? What's the?
I don't know. I'm getting quizzical looks from staff. I don't know if they're following the question.
Well, the question is, right now, there are 6 units allowed. With one of them affordable, that raises it to 8. How many units would need to be affordable to get to the 12 units that are being proposed? So would it be 3?
That sounds about right. I'm trying to do the math in my head. Let me write it down.
Ms. Jones is figuring that out on pad and paper, so.
Okay,
I don't know-
but
I don't know if
I
you had
guess-
any
Yeah,
other
that
question?
sounds about
But
right.
I guess my question really becomes, because what's really important to the city is building affordable units. And there's a demand for affordable home ownership units. And, it seems to me if the city is to consider this kind of trade-off, then they ought to actually get something that's permanently affordable. And I guess that raises the other question with respect to affordable for-sale units. How long do they need to be affordable?
The inclusionary housing ordinance requires that they be resold at the same, they're basically in perpetuity. They get resold and the same terms. They have to be sold to the same household at that same income level and the house price has to be restricted as well. So it's maintained in perpetuity just simply by 99-year agreements with each sale.
I presume there's some sort of inflation clause?
Yes, there is. Another option is affordable ownership could also be put into the land trust, which is another way of helping just maintain it, not necessarily to maintain it better, but to provide support to the people so they don't have to find a buyer on their own and do that sort of work.
Commissioner Arvalo, do you have any?
Yeah, I have a couple questions actually for staff. The side setbacks on residential 3 is 10 feet on either side. So with that said, if each of these lots are 50 feet by 290 feet deep, you could get a 30-foot, right now, no questions asked, you can get a 30-foot home front facing Grant Street and 2.0 for the floor area ratio within this, within each of these lots. So you could get a mega mansion on each of these lots. It's a 50-foot lot. 30 feet is a pretty big house. So right now you could get that. There would be somebody within your group right now that would complain because now you have 2 mega mansions sitting in front of your house. So I actually am in favor of the pocket neighborhood, just for the same reason. Right now, the way that, as an architect, the way that the housing trends are, a lot of the millennials, Generation Z, are living with a lot less than what we are accustomed to. They are looking for tiny houses. Unfortunately, in my opinion, these are very kind of bare-boned. I agree with my colleagues here that they're not the prettiest things to look at right now. That can be developed, and we can try to get that up to standard, up to par, so that it fits more into the neighborhood. And I think that would appease a lot of the neighbors right now. Unfortunately, we're very accustomed to living through the years in the same type of situation or what we're looking at on a daily basis. And we don't, it's just human nature, we don't like change. We don't like this drastic change. And I think that that's part of the situation going into this pocket neighborhood. Yes, it's going to be a lot more dense. There's going to be a lot more people. I actually live in the 5th District, and I bought my home at the lowest point in when the housing market was at its lowest point. I can't afford what you're selling me right now on each of these units. I have a 3-bedroom, and it's not as much. The other thing too is you're trying to sell it to us as like the Sears catalog houses that you used to be able to get. You can actually purchase $80,000 worth of materials at Menards and build your own house. Right now, it's a 3-bedroom. You can do that in materials. Now, let's just go back to nobody knows how to build anything anymore by hand because there are no more, there are no more carpenters, there are no more plumbers that are available that aren't outrageously priced. But I don't think that this change into this neighborhood is a bad thing. We want to be able to bring in and basically wrap our arms around the new homeowners that are actually looking to become homeowners and not renters, because renters don't take care of their stuff as well as a homeowner. I mean, lifestyles right now are changing, and it changes every single day. The younger, maybe I'm making myself seem old, but the younger generation, like he was explaining before, the gentleman was explaining before, they come in with one suitcase and their Game Boy, or whatever you call the newest video game set, and that's all they come with. They don't know how to do anything, so the least that they have to do to a house, that's probably the best thing for them to be able to, or what they will afford, because they actually do not know how to do anything. And I'm letting you know that because I rebuilt my home by hand, my hands. I did it. So I know, and I know the way that the younger generation is, and I'm sorry, but they don't know how to do anything right now. That's my 2 cents.
As an educator at ETHS, I find that highly offensive.
Well,
Our students are incredible.
we're not here to take comments at this particular moment.
I appreciate that, but I can't sit here and have my community kids be attacked like that.
All right, noted. My general thoughts on the project. So when the efficiency homes originally came in, I don't know if a couple of you commissioners who were on Plan Commission remember, but I was involved in helping consult on that particular project with the individual who was seeking the change. And we were looking at that time at about 39 properties, I think, throughout Evanston, something along that lines, in order to make them more buildable. The idea was by changing setbacks, by removing some parking, by, tweaking the ordinance a little bit here and there, that we could make things that would be buildable in the area. I don't think we had anticipated something this large. There was discussion at the time about perhaps 2 efficiency homes cohabitating on a lot, but nothing of this size. I think, and this goes back to, I know I addressed this issue with Mr. Wallach, but I do think that we are a little ahead of ourselves here in two different ways. Number one, I keep hearing from the applicant, well, this has changed, this is tweaked, we're going to tweak this. That makes it very hard for us to wrap our heads around what the final product is that we're being asked to recommend. The other aspect of it is that, as Commissioner Halleck said, we really have not started on a comprehensive general plan. There are ideas about what individuals would like to see put into it, but we've not had any meetings that have sort of kicked this whole thing off. And I would be very hesitant for this body, although it's just a recommending body in this particular point, but to be making a policy change for the city of Evanston. Recommending one way or the other on it just seems a little ahead of ourselves at this particular moment without knowing all the details of exactly what kind of impact this would have on the city. What are we sort of opening ourselves up to? So that's my general thoughts on this particular project. I also think that, you know, if this is something that City Council does want to entertain or move into, I think we need to look at if we're going to start accepting pocket neighborhoods, really making them into the planned development area, because that's where we're able to put together public benefits, things like that that don't come with a special use. Those are when, you know, you want to build a high-rise downtown or a mid-rise or 60-unit building, whatever, that the public gets something and benefit from it. And we've heard from the applicant that we will get taxes, which we know we will get taxes. But those take time, and sometimes those don't address the tangibles of the immediate neighborhood. We have asked people to pave alleys before as part of a planned development. We have asked people to put parks in a neighborhood, something that will impact the immediate neighborhood that is being impacted most by any sort of a large change. We do have to go through these two items separately. There will be two separate votes, as I mentioned earlier, one on the zoning text amendment, the other on the special use. In order to make any findings on these for recommending to City Council, there are certain standards that we must find are met. The first one I'm going to go through is the text amendment, so if you want to bring those up, if you have those up. These are the 4 standards that we must look at for recommending approval for any zoning text amendment. And I'll run through those, and I'll ask commissioners if they have differences, opinions, or additional thoughts to please add them in. Number 1, whether the proposed amendment is consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the Comprehensive General Plan as adopted and amended from time to time by City Council. The Comprehensive General Plan does tell us to look at expanding the types of housing that we provide. We obviously want to have different levels of housing. We don't want all $1 million homes. We also don't want all $100,000 condos or rentals. So where this gets a little tricky is we keep hearing about, well, that we should be moving toward this in our comprehensive plan, but the comprehensive plan as it's written right now doesn't really look at a pocket neighborhood as one of the things that we are supposed to be considering. This one is tricky for me. I can see it going either way, because obviously there are benefits to this where it does meet certain parts of the plan, but I think it also falls short in other parts of the plan.
And
I would definitely, I made the point that it does fall short of the plan, and it's sort of a new site development type, and I think that's the major issue.
Yeah, and we're going to be discussing the comprehensive plan, and this is something someday, staff says soon, but I think this is an area of discussion. It was really kind of a concern when the efficiency housing ordinance was developed, and so I think that while this does add a new housing type or a new neighborhood type, which is not unlike some of the other planned developments that have happened in the past that have been single family and nature, I think that this is a question.
Number 2, whether the proposed amendment is compatible with the overall character of existing development in the immediate vicinity of the subject property. I think we've heard testimony that since this is something that is so new, it really does not fit in with the surrounding area. Obviously, we're talking about an R3 district, which has certain limitations. It's kind of in the middle, but towards the lower end of our density and restrictions on what can be built there. So I don't believe that that standard is met. Number 3, whether the proposed amendment will have an adverse effect on the value of adjacent properties. This one, again, it's kind of hard to tell because it's something that's kind of new and different and unique. Obviously, if places are selling for $359,000 to $379,000, that's a significant increase on the property values, I would think, on adjoining properties. The difference being if these are also built and just sit empty and nothing happens with them, which again, with the planned development, we would be asking for a marketing study, which we don't ask for special uses. So I'm going to have to say that I believe that this standard is met. I know there may be some discrepancy with other commissioners, but I feel that this one is met. And D, the adequacy of public facilities and services. This is one that we often look at with again, planned developments, not so much special uses. But obviously, anything that would be built on this site, if it were to be these 12 efficiency homes, the developer would be responsible for improving whatever electrical, plumbing, those sorts of facility improvements that would be necessary at their expense.
And often we talk about roads, curbs, sidewalks, alleys.
Right. And again, that's where it gets a little tricky here because those are things we talk about in planned developments, not in special uses, which kind of goes back to one of the issues that I think a lot of us are struggling with, which is had this come as a planned development, it would have been viewed differently than a special use. Those are the 4 standards that we must look at there. Does anybody have any additional thoughts on those standards for the text amendment?
I'll just mention that in terms of number 3, I don't think an efficiency house necessarily will have an adverse effect at all. I think what we don't know is if you have an entire set of efficiency homes, what effect that might have on the neighborhood's property, and that's just difficult to really nail down at this point.
All right. At this point, is there somebody who would like to make a motion in regard to the text amendment, which is going to be, just a second, let me get the number here. You got it? Okay.
Sure. I move that the Land Use Commission recommend approval of the proposed text amendment for efficiency homes. That is case 23 PLND-0060.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Commissioner Halleck?
Yeah, sorry, just procedurally. I'm okay with the 600 square feet. I'm not okay with the special use. I absolutely think it should be a PD. So how do you?
Would you like to make an amendment to?
Can I do that? I'd like to amend the motion to say that, to exclude or to state that we prefer a plan development for any site that is over 2 efficiency homes.
Okay.
Why don't we just, as an alternative, why don't you just eliminate the updates to section 64 or 6-4-1-6 that oh wait, because you can do a plan development now, correct?
Yeah, I mean, you
Yeah.
can do a plan development just about anywhere in the city, I think. Yeah.
So if we were to eliminate the second 2 bullet points, do we need to? It's on, I don't know what, it's page 2 of 3 of this particular thing.
So,
How
so
about if
that,
I withdraw my motion?
okay,
I
would you
could
like to
do
make
that.
another motion?
With respect to, well, actually, I guess I probably need to leave the first one on the table. We need to deal with George's.
Well, George's has not been seconded yet.
No.
So without a second, that's not a valid motion yet.
Well, it can be. I'll second George's. But,
Can
well,
we go through this again? What
yeah,
what is the
let's-
actual
can we
motion?
start over? I'll withdraw my motion and let's
All right.
start over.
All right.
And let's have a little, and then can you, with whoever seconded, withdraw the second?
I'll withdraw my second.
Okay. I think then we have to have discussion as to where people stand on the 3 bullet points that constitute the amendment.
Okay. So we'll take each one at a separately. So the first one would be an increase from 500 feet to, or 500 square feet to 600 square feet or less for the ground floor area. Everything else there kind of remains the same, but that was the change that was proposed in that one. So just a little straw poll here. How does everyone feel about that change?
It's fine.
Everyone good with that? So that one seems to be good. Number of buildings or uses on a zoning lot limits the number currently to 1 in anything from the R1 through R4 zoning districts, and it would be amended to require a special use if more than 1 efficiency home is sought for a property.
I'm okay with keeping it at 1, but saying, changing special use.
I don't think your microphone's on.
I'm okay with keeping it at 1, but changing special use to plan development for anything more than that.
Okay. Is that generally acceptable?
Yeah.
Okay. So the change there would be, the text would change to require a planned development if more than 1 efficiency home is sought on a property. Good. And then the final one is efficiency homes to reference the new subsection stated above. The applicant proposed to repeat the language created for section 6416C. However, staff believes a simple reference to the revised section will suffice. Staff, I guess this is more of a question to you then, feeling that do we just need to reference back to the section as we're changing, propose the change of it? Is that your concern?
Yes, essentially. If there are changes that you're proposing to that section, we would want to directly reference that section instead of having repetition that may have to be
Right.
repeatedly updated.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. What section is the plan, would be the plan development? Under bullet, it's, because section 6-3-5 is special uses.
PDs are 636, I believe.
6-6,
636.
636.
636.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so would you like me to try again?
Try again.
Okay, I move that the Land Use Commission, with respect to case number 23 PLND-0060, text amendment, efficiency homes, that the Land Use Commission recommend approval to update section 6-18-3 definitions to increase the maximum square footage of the ground level to 600 square feet, to update section 6-4-1-6, the number of buildings or uses on a zoning lot, to amend, to add, also, it limits the number of principal buildings on the lot to 1 within the R1 through R6, R1 to R4 zoning districts, to add a subsection C to require a planned development if more than one efficiency home is sought for a property specifically, to read, except when authorized as a planned development pursuant to Section 6-3-6, planned developments of this title, not more than one efficiency home shall be located on a zoning lot regardless of lot size, width, or shape in all residential zoning districts. And the third section to update Section 6-8-1-14 of efficiency homes to reference the new subsection stated above.
All right. So that has been moved by Commissioner Lindwall. Is there a second?
I will second.
Second by Commissioner Westerberg. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Yes.
Commissioner Halleck?
Yes.
Commissioner Linwall?
Yes.
Commissioner Westerberg?
Yes.
Chair Rogers?
Yes, so with 5 votes in favor and none against, that will go forward to City Council with a positive recommendation. And then we move on to the special use that's being sought under 23 ZMJB 0046. We also have a number of standards that must be found for any special use in the city, and those 9 standards are. Let me bring those up on the.
I have a procedural
Yes.
question. Since we've recommended against the special use, we've said it should be a planned development. What does that mean for this request, which is a special use, which would not be?
Well, technically, we've made a recommendation to City Council, but the ordinance has not changed.
Right.
So the ordinance is still kind of, since we're recommending,
We're recommending it be a planned development, but it doesn't allow a special use right now. It can't be a special use right now. You needed to have the text amendment allow it to be a
Correct.
special use.
correct. Correct. So when we go through the standards, there are standards that will address that.
Okay.
The first standard being that it is one of the special uses specifically listed in the zoning ordinance. As we were just having a discussion, this special use is currently not listed in the zoning ordinance, which was why a text amendment was being sought for a change there. So if the text amendment had been approved with a special use, we could have found this standard to be met, but I cannot find this standard to be met if that, since we did not approve that particular phrasing in the text amendment.
Isn't that going to be the answer for every one of these?
We're going to get pretty close to that on a number of these. So, but we do have to go through the process because we are making a record for City Council, and I just pointed to Councilmember Revelle back there. She represents City Council right now. Number 2, it is in keeping with the purposes and policies of the adopted comprehensive general plan with the zoning ordinances amended from time to time. This kind of goes back to what we talked about on the text amendment, that the comprehensive general plan currently does not sort of provide for this type of thing, even though there is discussion about wanting to have increased types of housing, obviously price points for housing. All of that is important to maintain a thriving city. But with this particular thing not being yet in the comprehensive plan, I don't believe that this standard has been met. Number 3, it will cause a negative cumulative effect when its effect is considered in conjunction with the cumulative effects of various special uses of all types on the immediate neighborhood and the effect of the proposed type of special use upon the city as a whole. Again, we're kind of going right back to the issue of if we don't think special uses should be, if we can't recommend special uses as a type of pocket community under our current ordinances, and we don't feel that a text amendment supports that, this standard also would not be met. Number 4, it does not interfere with or diminish the value of property in the neighborhood. This was one of those questions, or one of the standards that's also addressed in the text amendment, where we've already had discussion about the fact that with with something new like this, we can't really make a strong determination about what type of effect it will have. We've not had any sort of real estate experts appraising things, that sort of stuff. So I'm willing to say that this standard is met, like I did on the previous one. Number 5, it can be adequately served by public facilities and services. Again, this is similar to the text amendment question or the standard that was raised. Any developer, when they're coming into things, would have a plan to provide for the facilities and services that need to be in place. So I feel that standard is met. Number 6, does not cause undue traffic congestion. We've heard some discussion about the fact that the alley is pretty impassable during the winter time, which would potentially push more cars out onto the street. I'm willing to give the developer the benefit of the doubt on this one. However, he is providing parking spaces where none are required. So I believe that this standard has been met. Number 7, it preserves significant historical and architectural resources. There are none, to my knowledge, on this particular property at present. Number 8, preserves significant natural and environmental features. We have heard a lot of discussion from the developer in particular about maintaining green space and permeability on the space. I believe that standard is met. And number 9, it complies with all other complies with all other applicable regulations of the district in which it is located and other applicable ordinances, except to the extent such regulations have been modified through the plan development process or the grant of a variation. This kind of goes back to the point that we talked about earlier about if we're recommending to City Council that a special use not be used in this type of thing, but a plan development be used. Obviously, since the plan development has not been used or has not been presented to us, it is not complying with those regulations through the change through a plan development process. So that standard, I feel, is not met. Anyone have anything they would like to add or disagree with on those findings of standards? So with that, I will ask if there are any conditions that we would like to recommend to City Council. Again, remembering that when we make the recommendation to City Council, they can take it in full and part. If there's anything that we have an expressed concern about, if they were to move forward with this, that we feel they should address.
Yes, I'd like to just add the developer is, the applicant has discussed this, but I'd like to add, in addition to the 2 that staff suggested with respect to electric vehicle charging station and working with staff on building materials and layout of interior walkways. I'd like to add elimination of the curb cuts on Grand Street. And also, I think working with staff to come up with a design that includes reorienting the 2 units closest to Grant Street toward the street. And I guess with respect to the walkways, adding to number 2 and, improving access to the garage or to the waste enclosure, the garbage enclosure.
Anything else, anybody?
I mean, I would suggest a full revised set of plans, both in terms of material use and in terms of the design of the units themselves and the green spaces. That needs to be finalized.
Working out the questions that we kept hearing, this has changed on the plans.
Correct.
All right.
With respect to Commissioner Linwell, when the recommendation of facing the first 2 buildings towards Grand Street, wouldn't that go against the first young lady that spoke up? She did not want those to be switched around. I don't know if we can take that into consideration, or are we,
I think this is an urban planning issue, and I think that when you want to reinforce a streetscape, which I think we always do, that the homes should face the street and not sideways or angled or, anything like that. That's where this is coming from.
Although you do have on that block a couple of townhomes that go back this way.
That's true, but that doesn't mean that's right.
Correct. Just pointing that out.
It's just a comment, that's all.
All right. All right, Commissioner Linwell, would you like to make a motion?
Sure, I'll give it a shot. I didn't do very well the last time, but we'll try. That's because you don't want to do it. Okay, with respect to case number 23ZMJV-0046, a special use for 1915 to 17 Grant Street, that the Land Use Commission recommend approval of the proposed special use with the following conditions. That the applicant provide one electric vehicle charging station in addition to the required EV-ready spaces. 2, to continue to work with staff on building facade materials and layout of interior walkways for creation of an outdoor common space and improving access to the garbage enclosure. 3, the elimination of curb cuts on Grant Street. And 4, working with the applicant to orient the 2 units closest to Grant Street towards the Grant Street frontage.
All right, it has been moved. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Moved by Commissioner Linwell, seconded by Commissioner Westerberg. Any further discussion? Hearing none, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Aravallo?
Yes.
Commissioner Halleck? No. Commissioner Linwell?
No?
Commissioner Westerberg?
No.
Chair Rogers?
No. So with 1 vote in favor and 4 against, it will move forward to City Council with a negative recommendation. City Council obviously is the determining body in this matter, so they will take our recommendation. They can ask additional questions, they can approve things, they can deny things. It's purely up to them at this point. But that's our full record of our meeting tonight will go to all the council members. And in terms of Mr. Wallach, city staff will work with you on exactly what timing will be there and sort of what sort of things that have come through tonight that maybe would help you in a presentation to City Council. All right. So with that, we have completed the 2 matters that were before us. We do have a couple other agenda items. The first one being the adoption of our 2024 meeting calendar. I was going to say, I don't remember seeing that in our packets. I may have missed it too. Did I miss it as well?
Yeah, I thought it was at the very end.
I may have missed it because it
Large
came after
packet.
some things. I mean, our typical practice is, I'm assuming you've checked for particularly Jewish holidays in September, October to make sure we don't conflict there. And then break for ETHS and District 65, District 202, spring break.
Yes, actually, we probably want to double check spring break.
I'm going to make a recommendation maybe that we go ahead with our first meeting on the 10th, but we look at this when we have the entire commission here. I think it makes more sense rather than just the 5 of us.
Yeah, I
They
agree.
may have things in particular that will come out beforehand. So I would move that we table the adoption of our 2024 meeting calendar to our meeting on January 10th. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The next item is the election of chair and vice chair.
You willing to do this again?
I'm willing to do it again if you're willing to have me again.
Do you need a nomination?
There would need to be a nomination.
I'll nominate Matt Rogers as commission chair
Do we want to make Max be vice chair again?
and Max Bechtel as the vice chair.
All
I'll
right.
second.
So it's been moved to elect me, Matt Rogers, as chair, and Commissioner Poquetel, who's currently serving as vice chair, to return to that role. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? With 5 votes in favor and none against, the motion carries, and we will serve as the officers next year. The next item is communication. Does staff have anything they would like to communicate with us?
I do. As you saw on the calendar, we are working with HDR and trying to finalize the work plan, the public engagement plan. So there are dates that are proposed on the calendar based off of what they have proposed for giving presentations when they'll need to talk to various boards and commissions. So I believe the first date for a real kickoff is in February. If for whatever reason you want to add a general discussion ahead of time before that presentation, that we can see when that makes sense, or
Excuse me, are we the first group that they present to besides the staff? Or we are?
based off of the plan that I've seen so far, this will be the
So
first.
it's us and then council? Is that how it works, or?
I would need to look at the plan to see exactly what dates things are. They're trying to schedule everything within the same time frame, but it would be around the same time as.
But that's the routine, that's the process, okay. Well, great. I want to compliment the staff for finally putting this on the agenda.
And I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but February 14th, which is when you would present, is both Valentine's Day and Ash Wednesday. So we may have a smaller consortium of folks. Just if we can
Yeah, we
change that.
Yeah, these are tentative dates. So those. Yeah, we can reschedule. Oops, sorry. To see when they would be available, because they do want to try to present to other boards and commissions around the same amount of time. So
Okay.
we can see what works.
All right. At this point, we
I
have.
have a few other
Yep.
questions. These are questions I think are either for staff or for our legal department. And so the first one is, these questions are all related to the fact that in the last month or so, I've listened to the council meetings over the Northwestern issue, and I was actually surprised at several things. So my questions are related to how our group differs from council in terms of what we can do. Okay, the first issue is that, well, first of all, generally, is the council subject to the same standards that we review when they vote on these things? It just seemed so arbitrary. I didn't hear one meeting where they went through the standards.
So this is the way I've always interpreted it.
Yeah.
Is council is held to those standards, but council has a bigger bag of tricks from which they can pull to put conditions in to make standards met.
Right.
They do not have the practice of going through standards like we do.
Should they?
That's up to council.
Should we recommend that?
That is council and.
Okay, all right.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
okay.
that's really their call. We can't.
Okay, so here's my second question. One of the council members asked the staff to do independent research on a subject. Could we do that?
So within, if you want to address, within the rules that establish us as a board and give us certain authorities, we do have the authority to ask staff to explore things. We do it regularly. It gets a little thorny because we're asking to take a staff resource.
Yeah, I understand.
But I think as long as we don't abuse that power.
But we can for
We can
not
request-
major things, maybe,
right,
or
but
not
we-
major
well, and we've done it
time-consuming
before in the
things.
past when we've looked at the parking. Remember, we were looking at. We've always said,
that's
you only
true.
have to have
That's
so
true.
much
We did do
parking. Could
that.
you bring a report back
Okay.
to us that gives us?
Okay. All right, good. That's my second question. My third question is, can we, some of the council members negotiated directly with applicants, with the applicant. Can we do that prior to a meeting, or is that?
No.
But they can. Is this part of the lawsuit? I don't know, but I just wondered if, I saw that happen, and so I thought, well, geez, maybe we should be able to do that too. And the answer is no, we can't do it.
The answer is no, we can't do it.
Yeah.
The question about whether council should do it is not really a question that we can answer.
Yeah, okay.
But we cannot do that. That would
Okay,
be.
well,
that would be
that was my
ex parte-
question. Can we do that?
That would be ex parte conversations for us.
And
to
that's
do.
what I
Yeah.
would think would
Yeah.
apply to both us and the council.
Again, we can police ourselves, and council
Okay.
is
so-
responsible for policing themselves.
Thanks.
Now it's public comment. This is a point at which anybody who's still in the room who would like to address us on any matter with land use can have the podium or the lectern in order to do so. I'm not seeing anybody raise a hand. So at this point, I will ask if there is a motion to adjourn to our meeting on January 10th, 2024 at 7 p.m. in City Council chambers.
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. We do stand adjourned. Thank you.